Good morning. Can you hear us?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. York?
Yes, ma'am. How you doing?
I'm good. Mr. York, before we get started, let me ask you, are you expecting counsel this morning? A lawyer?
I was, but no one came for counseling.
Who were you expecting? Do you know?
No, ma'am.
You had, it's because it seems like at one point you had appointed counsel, Mr. Bobby Domingo or something like that. You,
I never heard of him.
so you, okay. So at your preliminary hearing, did you have appointed counsel?
No, ma'am.
Are you ready? Well, can you, first of all, okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Let me just do some preliminary work and then we'll talk about your counsel if you want one. The Committee on Parole is called to order. Today is June the 4th, 2024. It's Tuesday. The time is 8:58 a.m. My name is Cheryl Renatza, serving as chairman of today's parole panel. My colleagues this morning on the panel, seated to my left is Ms. Jerry Ledoux, and to my right is Ms. Carolyn Stapleton. We are at St. Martin Parish Jail. We have before us Mr. Brent York. Mr. York, would you introduce yourself? Tell us your name and DOC number.
I'm Brent York, DOC 572813.
Yes, sir. So Mr. York, we're going to put let me ask the staff here to introduce themselves. Thank you. Thank you.
Jason,
All right. We are at DOC headquarters in Baton Rouge, Mr. York. Can you find this parole revocation questionnaire? We're going to put a form up on the screen and see if you there. Do you recognize that form?
Yes, ma'am. I have.
That's your signature at the bottom, dated August of 2023.
Yes, ma'am. I have a copy too.
Okay. Based on your answers to those questions, I believe it was determined you're not eligible for appointed counsel. Is that your understanding?
I was told that, and then I was told that I was going to get appointed counsel, so I really was confused, kind of.
Yeah, what is, we're going to stand by, we're going to check. Yeah. Mr. York, it seems as though maybe we're trying to check to see if you were appointed counsel. It's not clear in the record, so we have to make a couple of phone calls. So we want you to just stand by. We're going to go on and have another hearing, and we're going to come back to you shortly.
All right. Could I continue without counsel?
If you want to, you can.
Yes, I'd like to go ahead on and continue without counsel.
All right. Well, we're ready to proceed then. So, okay, so let me get to that. The way this will work, Mr. York, is I'm going to read the allegations against you. You understand you're here for a revocation decision, right? Okay. I'm going to read the allegations against you, after which you will enter a plea of guilty or not guilty. Then I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Ledoux. Your case has been assigned to her. She'll take the lead on the interview questions. Before we reach a decision, you'll be allowed to make a statement if you'd like.
No, ma'am.
No, well, at the end, if you want to make a statement, I'll ask you then. Okay, so you are accused of violating the conditions of your parole, specifically condition number 3, and it states you received written permission to travel to North Dakota from July 7th to August 7th, 2023, and failed to return to Louisiana on August 7th, 2023. How do you plead to violating condition number 3?
Guilty.
Say guilty?
Well, really
Well,
not
I tell you what, you can say guilty with a statement and we'll take your statement in a minute. So is it guilty or not?
guilty with a statement.
Okay. And we're gonna take your statement in just a minute. The next one is condition number 4, and it states you fail to refrain from criminal activity by committing domestic abuse battery on August 12th, 2023. Subsequently, you were arrested by the Breaux Bridge Police Department on August 12th, 2023, and charged with domestic abuse battery. On January 6, 2024, you appeared before Judge Lewis Pittman in the 16th Judicial District Court in St. Martin Parish, and it was ordered that the matter be dismissed. Mr. York, how do you plead to violating condition number 4?
Not guilty.
Okay. Next, we have condition number 10, and it states you failed to make any payments to this account, your supervision fees, resulting in an arrearage of $567. How do you plead to violating condition number 10?
Guilty.
Okay. Then we have 2 instances of condition number 13, which are special conditions. The first is the special condition was that you attend 2 AA or NA meetings per week. You failed to provide proof that you attended any AA or NA meetings. How do you plead? Guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
Okay. And the second instance, condition number 13, was that you were ordered to obtain substance abuse and mental health evaluations and follow recommended treatment. You failed to provide proof of completion of substance abuse or mental health evaluation. How do you plead to that violation?
Not guilty.
All right. Would you answer Mrs. Ledoux, please?
Good morning, Mr. York. I think that I would like to pick up right there on your not guilty, but response to those questions. Tell me about when the board ordered your special condition to do the mental health eval and AANA. You went to those? You completed those?
Yes, ma'am. I was already diagnosed in East Feliciana Parish Prison with mental disorder. So I got out in October 2022. And I went and I got a Dr. Mika Jew at SWLA in Lafayette, Louisiana. And my PO, she wanted a picture of my medication. She took pictures of my medication and everything. So I don't know why that's even on there.
Well, on several occasions within the dialogue that your parole officer submitted, it looks like we have no proof that you went to any of those.
Yeah, I texted her my from my phone, just the proof that I had, the picture of the medications and everything, and I don't understand that one.
Okay, what about AANA? Because when you were asked, you said you didn't have transportation to go, and that's why you hadn't been going.
To the AA meetings, yes. My truck had broke down, and I wasn't able to go to the AA meetings. I'm the one who asked to go to the AA meetings. I went to the little scheduled appointments for every month at the courthouse, so my little monthly thing, and they had a questionnaire for the first time. And the last question was, is there anything that your PO could help me with? And I left it blank. She said, you can't leave till you answer it. So I just put, I could attend AA meetings just thinking, it was satisfied. But then she took that and made it where I had to go to AA meetings twice a week. And I told her I didn't need it, but she said it was too late. I didn't have reason to even go to twice a week like that.
Did she explain that the board actually ordered in May of last year that you attend those? But that was a board ordered special condition.
Yeah, she did that after I answered that question like that. I never had to do that. I got out in October. And I never had to go to no AA meetings. I'm the one who answered the questionnaire like that.
In May of 2023, she informed you that the board ordered you to go to those meetings. The reason I bring that up is because you were able to make the anger management classes when you knew that that might divert you from a charge, your domestic abuse charge. You were able to make those classes and completed that, and I'm glad you did, but you didn't do what we ordered you to do.
Oh, ma'am, those classes were in the jail that I'm in right now. I didn't have to go anywhere. They're already here in the jail that I'm in. It wasn't it was on the street. I needed transportation for.
You understand that a part of our report, we have photographs of your victim with the domestic abuse battery. Whether the charge is dropped or not doesn't mean that the activity did not exist, that you didn't harm her. You understand that?
Yes, ma'am. Even though I didn't do that though, she got into it with the person that picked me up from the airport. She's been fighting with that girl for months before this.
And you're telling me that a girl did all of those, made all those bruises on her body in those different places?
But she fought with two people trying to say that I went over there, but I didn't even go over there to her house. I went to a neighbor's house when I came back from North Dakota. She knew that the girl brought me from the airport, and I left from the house. She thought I went to the girl's house, but I didn't go over there. She went over there to mess with the girl car, and the girl and her friend, you know, they had an altercation out there, and she took the girl's phone and just didn't come home. And I was just the next day, the police come in at the house like, you know, like I did something, and I didn't even know what happened.
Do either of my colleagues have any questions they would like to ask?
Yes, Mr. York, you indicated as far as your mental health evaluation and your mental health treatment that you provided the snapshot of the prescription. Was there any other treatment plan that was given to you other than the medication?
No, ma'am, I had no treatment plan upon my release.
And at the time you were arrested for the domestic abuse, were you taking the medicine like it was prescribed to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you still take it now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. That's all I have. Any questions? All right, Mr. York, is there anything you'd like to say to us before we vote?
They don't have an inmate lawyer here. I was just kind of going on the law library. It had LA section 155747. It said incarceration shall not be used unless I was convicted of domestic, and my charges was dropped, you know.
Not correct.
And I've been here over 9 months.
Okay, let's move it back to the parole conditions. You're a fourth felony offender, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so this isn't your first time on supervision, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, if you review the paperwork that you were given when you left prison, it's very clear that you will not engage in any criminal behavior. It doesn't mean the charges, okay? So when we have evidence, and I understand you're disputing that evidence, but we have evidence that your victim had bruising all over her body, and she testified that, you know, this happened, and whether she recanted it or not, we have that evidence that that occurred. So we have the prerogative to make a decision based on the evidence that we've been presented. Okay?
Even though I didn't do it, and my charges got dropped, I'm still being, it's like, it's
You're,
still saying like I did it, even though my charges were dropped and I didn't do it. So,
the fact that the charges are dropped does not indicate that you did or did not do it.
right,
Okay. Would you like to make a statement, on your own behalf?
no, ma'am,
Do you still have a relationship with Ms. Boyd?
no, ma'am.
Okay, good. All right, I think we're prepared to vote. Mrs. Ledoux will be voting first.
Mr. York, I am concerned that domestic abuse battery is a very serious crime. And based on the evidence that I have before me today, that's not been disputed, I vote to revoke your parole based on your behavior while on parole. Mrs. Stapleton.
I agree with Ms. Ledoux.
Mr. York, I find you guilty of violating condition number 3, condition number 4, and condition number 13 in both instances. And so my vote also is to revoke your parole. Today, sir, your parole is being revoked. We will send you information that will tell you have the opportunity to reapply for parole. And we'll send you information on how and when you can do that.
All right, thank you,
Good luck to you, sir.
thank you.
That concludes our business in St. Martin. All right, good morning, Mr. Johnson.
Audit.
The Committee on Parole is reconvening. We're now at Tangipahoa Parish Jail on Tuesday, June 4th, 2024. The time is 9:19 a.m. Mr. Johnson, do you introduce yourself? Tell us your name and DOC number.
My name is Brandon Terrell Johnson. My DOC number is 612714.
Do you have a staff member in the room with you, or are you by yourself?
I'm by myself.
Okay, I was gonna get them to introduce themselves, but we'll go ahead and proceed. Let me introduce us to you. My name is Cheryl Renatza. Seated to my left is Mrs. Ledoux, and to my right is Mrs. Stapleton. We are your parole panel this morning.
How y'all doing?
Good. I see you had a piece of paper that you were looking at, but we're gonna put up, I think, that piece of paper on the screen. Let's put it up for him.
Okay.
We're gonna put it up there for you. Can you put it up a little? You recognize that form, Mr. Johnson?
I don't see nothing at the moment. The screen went off.
The screen went off?
Yes, ma'am. I think I can hit Zoom. Let me see. It's back.
Do you recognize that form that's on the screen? Do you see it?
Yes, ma'am. I see it. I'm trying to read it.
Is that your signature at the bottom of the page dated March 13, 2024?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Based on the information contained in that questionnaire, Mr. Johnson, it was determined you're not eligible for appointed counsel this morning. Is that your understanding?
Yes, ma'am.
Ready to proceed?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to read the allegations against you, the parole violations, and ask you to enter a plea of guilty or not guilty, and then we'll have a conversation about it. After you enter your pleas, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Stapleton because your case has been assigned to her and she'll take the lead on the questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Before we reach a decision, if you'd like to, you can make a statement. Okay, ready?
Yes, ma'am. Ready.
You're accused of violating the conditions of your parole, specifically condition number 4. The first instance, it states, you were engaged in criminal conduct on March 9, 2024, which led to your arrest by the Tangipahoa Parish Sheriff's Office and subsequent charges of possession of Schedule I and felon in possession of a firearm. On April 30th, 2024, the charge of possession of a controlled dangerous substance was rejected. How do you plead to violating condition number 4 in that instance?
Not guilty.
Not guilty. And then we have another condition number 4, which states Tangipahoa Parish Sheriff's Office advised you admitted to using marijuana and Xanax at the time of your arrest, which is a violation of condition number 4. How do you plead to that violation?
Guilty.
Lastly is condition number 5. You were in possession of a firearm on March 9, 2024, as evidenced by your arrest for felon in possession of a firearm. How do you plead to violating condition number 5?
Not guilty.
Okay. Would you answer Mrs. Stapleton's questions, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, sir. I'm just going to read from the, briefly from the arrest report, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Based upon verbal statements and evidence provided, Deputy Parker placed Johnson and Brown into custody. Deputy Parker charged and released Harmony Brown for willfully and knowingly possession of marijuana, narcotics on a misdemeanor summons. Deputy Parker transported Brandon Johnson to central lockup to be properly booked and processed for willfully and knowingly violating possession of Schedule I narcotics, which was synthetic marijuana, and conviction of a convicted felon in possession of a firearm. Further, earlier it says Deputy Parker also took possession of the firearm, the pistol located in the open purse in the car that you were in, and secured it in his fully marked patrol unit to be properly booked into evidence for processing. So you were arrested. They said they found these things. They placed them in central lockup.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
you're saying not guilty, and tell me how come.
Deputy Parker told me that I was gonna beat these charges the way that he wrote it up. He said it wasn't his call. It was the narcotic call and the parole officer call. I didn't know anything about the firearm. As you read the report, and do you have the affidavits that she wrote saying that she just wanted me out the car because I was asleep and the police put the gun on me? And the officer told me, he said, Brandon, you're gonna beat these charges because look how I wrote it up. He said it wasn't my call. Like they called the narcotics and the narcotics said place the charges on him. What charges to put on who? I had no knowledge of a gun.
Well, the way that it started with the 911 call. And she said that she'd been held against her will for 3 days. Started with that. And then you obviously were in the vehicle with her purse. You must have had the doors locked. Is that correct? Because they knocked on the window and you were asleep in there and you opened the doors, right?
No, he opened it. He knocked on the window, on the door. Then he said he knocked on the windshield to try to wake me up, and I was unresponsive.
Why were you unresponsive?
I had took a half of Xanax and smoking Mojo, synthetic marijuana.
Okay, so but there we have that. So that's definitely a guilty. And the purse they said was right there next to you, and it was open and in plain view with the pistol in it, and that's why you got that charge, because you were a felon and you weren't supposed to be around any kind of firearm.
No, ma'am. He said it was on the passenger side on the floorboard, leaning against the console, and he didn't have it wasn't visible until he moved something, and I didn't know she had a gun. It was in her name, and I didn't know she had one.
Okay, what about the holding her against her will for 3 days? You said she's lying about that?
Yes, ma'am. She said she just wanted me out the car because I was asleep in the car. That was she wrote out for Davis. Did y'all have that documentation?
Okay. It does have here that Johnson has an extensive history of domestic violence, including 2 separate convictions for 4th offense domestic abuse battery involving 2 separate women. Johnson's recent arrest stems from a 911 call regarding a woman being held against her will. So you do have a history of domestic violence, so that's why I was to believe that was what was going on.
No, ma'am. That conviction was over 10 years old. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well then that's all my questions.
Mr. Johnson, were you asleep in the car or were you passed out in the car?
I was unresponsive.
Yeah, okay. Because of the Mojo and the what'd you say, Xanax?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Levine?
Mr. Johnson, I just want to note that you are a 4th felony offender. You were paroled August of 23 and then picked up these charges in November of 23.
Yes, ma'am.
You know what you need to do to stay out of trouble.
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
Mr. Johnson, have you ever had any substance abuse treatment?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell us about it. Where have you received treatment?
Wood Lake and Denham Springs.
It was at an outpatient program or an inpatient?
Inpatient. I never did outpatient.
How long is that program?
It was 28 days.
Do you remember when you did that?
I think it was like 21.
Before you got arrested for the charge you're currently on supervision, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yep.
I was in drug court.
All right. Is there anything you'd like to say to us before we vote?
Yes, ma'am. I would like to ask y'all, like, could the board forgive me for what I did? And I was trying to see, can I get some outpatient treatment for the Mojo and the Xanax and just be out there with my family, you know, ask for another chance.
What is this update?
All right. I think we're ready to vote. Mrs. Stapleton.
Mr. Johnson, at this time, I'm going to have to revoke but condition number 4 for certain, because you did admit to using the drugs.
The Xanax and the Mojo misdemeanor, they threw that out in the courts.
It doesn't matter, sorry. Mrs. Ledoux.
Criminal behavior, it doesn't matter whether you're charged or not. Brandon, how long have you been doing drugs?
I I've been doing drugs since I was a teenager. But you know, I must say that, you know, that like putting me in jail really didn't give me no help. Like I want to go somewhere where I can get some help, you know, like because like, you know, I do got a problem using Mojo, you know, I think I'm done with it now, you know what I'm saying? But
Are you really
just being,
get help? Because you know it's only going to work if you really want it.
yes, man, I've been reading my NA book, you know, and it only works if you work it, you know. And I'm tired of my old ways and I'm ready for something new, you know, and just being in jail, like I have no rehabilitation in jail, like none whatsoever. And that's all been my problem. Like I go to jail, but I have no rehabilitation in jail. It's like it's right back on the street to the same old thing.
Yeah, you've never been in DOC custody that I can see.
That's what you need.
Yeah, I just felt DLC custody.
So my vote today is in lieu of revocation, I want to send you to the Steve Boyle Intensive Substance Abuse Program. It's at least 9 months.
Oh,
Oh no, baby, you want help or don't want help?
yeah, but I just can't be doing like other boy out there, like y'all can't take consideration. Like I just came from doing 1 year and 2 weeks. I was out 3 months and 9 days. Like I have my own place out there. I got a job waiting on my mom. I work with my mom. You know what I'm saying? And
Do
I'm
you know
just
how many people I see are never compliant with any kind of substance abuse program on the outside? You have a chance to get some real help, or I'll just revoke you. So
like,
to revoke.
could y'all do one like do it have to be 9 months? Can I get the 90-day program?
Generally, we allow the facility to determine which program they think you need. In your case, because of your, you know, you're doing your last jail time that you're under supervision now was possession of cocaine, fentanyl, and heroin. You obviously have some drug abuse addiction issues that need to be dealt with. You went to Woodlake and that didn't, you know, you did a 28-day program there, but then we find you passed out in a car because you're still abusing illegal substances. You need some help.
I was going through a death in the family.
Understand you're going to have difficulties all throughout life and you got to learn to.
And I'm ready to face fears that I didn't face, you know, on drugs, without drugs.
All right, I think, did you vote on the roll?
So Mr. Johnson, based on your decision not to comply with what the recommendation is, my vote is to revoke.
I didn't say I wasn't gonna comply, ma'am. I was asking the question. I just thought I could talk to y'all. I didn't say
It's okay here's the thing, you don't want to really get help. The 9-month program is where you're going to be able to leave that program and truly have a chance to be sober for the rest of your life. If you don't want that, then that's up to you. You said 9 months is too long for you. Well, we're going to revoke you if not, and then you're just going to sit in jail until it's time for you to get out. So it's your choice.
Can I ask a question?
What's that?
Okay, my question is the 9-month program, I didn't get your name, but she told me that like they don't know like it'll be 9 months or how long, like ain't that what you said?
Yeah, it can be up to 9 months.
So what it depends on?
We refer you, and then the Department of Correction makes a decision after they've interviewed you and states which program would be best. But my recommendation would be for the Steve Boyle program for 9 months. That's my recommendation.
Now, Mr. Johnson, you have to bear in mind that what was already mentioned, that your offense, your real offense was possession of cocaine, fentanyl, and heroin. So the Mojo and the Xanax, the Mojo is terrible because it can be mixed with fentanyl. They may have found you dead. You're playing with your life all the time. but those were very serious drugs. So you have a very serious drug problem. And clearly, because here within 3 months, you knew what would put you back in jail again, and yet you did it anyway. They found you unresponsive. They could have found you dead. But when it was mentioned to you, you said you wanted help, but when the 9 months came up, it was, oh, no, not 9 months.
Yeah,
Well,
because
talking
the reason
about
why,
your whole
All
life.
right,
the reason why I had said that because, y'all asked about outpatient, asked have I been an outpatient, and I could tell like the way you came on to me, you wasn't reading the whole report, you was picking out certain spots, and then
Mr. Johnson, we're going to continue voting now. Ms. Ledoux will complete her vote.
Okay, in lieu of revocation, I'm going to send you to a substance abuse program, preferably with Steve Will.
And my vote also, Mr. Johnson, is in lieu of revocation that we send you to the Steve Hoyle Substance Abuse Program. It's up to you now, sir. So we're going to send you there. Sit on the front row and learn everything you can. It's not about getting out of jail, Mr. Johnson. It's about staying out of jail. Good luck to you, sir.
so the 9-month
That's it.
program.
We're going to let them decide. We're going to let them decide.
Yeah,
We got to move on.
okay, can you tell me my full term date?
Yeah, 11/10 of 2025.
And that'll take me all the way to my full term date?
It's on you.
We don't do term.
Good luck to you, sir. We're going to sign off at 9:36 a.m. from Tangipahoa Parish.
Dang.
right, good morning. The Committee on Parole is reconvening. We're at the Louisiana Correctional Institute for Women. The time is 9:40 a.m. It is June 4th, 2024. My name is Cheryl Renatza, serving as chairman today. My colleagues on the panel, seated to my left is Mrs. Ledoux, and to my right is Mrs. Stapleton. We are at DOC headquarters in Baton Rouge. I'd like to get the staff at the women's prison, please introduce yourself for the record.
Okay, Morgan LeBlanc, Deputy Warden at LCIW.
Tara P., ARDC Manager. Afton Gowdy, ARDC Supervisor.
Introduce yourself.
Lieutenant Smith.
That's everybody?
That's everybody.
Good, thanks for accommodating us today. And we have Ms. Littlefield, is that you?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you introduce yourself? Tell us your name and DOC number, please.
Michelle Littlefield, 496-421.
All right, Ms. Littlefield, let me acknowledge the folks who are here with us in Baton Rouge. Well, on Zoom, we have, let's see, I believe, Dr. Marco Salvaggio from Tulane, James Redmond, your father, Sarita Steib from the Reentry Program, Tracy Pratt from Operation Restoration, and Ms. Steib, are you representing Ms. Littlefield?
No, I'm not, Ms. Renata. I'm the president and CEO of Operation Restoration.
Okay. Well, all the folks who I just interviewed indicated they want to speak. Is any one of you counsel for Ms. Littlefield? No? Okay. Here with us also at headquarters, we have representing the victim, Chris O'Brien and Joseph O'Brien. We also have a representative from the district attorney, the Butch Wilson from the 22nd Judicial District Court's District Attorney's Office. Welcome, everybody. The way the process will work, Ms. Littlefield, I'm going to read some identifying information into the record, ask you to confirm it, and then I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Ledoux. Your case has been assigned to her. She'll take the lead on the interview questions. Once we've completed our questions, we'll hear from Warden Law. And then we'll hear from the folks who've indicated they'd like to speak today. You'll be allowed to make a statement before we ask for the DA's input. You understand that process?
Yes, ma'am.
So, Michelle Littlefield, you're classified as a first felony offender. You're currently serving a 30-year sentence. You were sentenced June 15th, 2005. 2 counts of molestation of a juvenile. You received 15 years on each of those sentences running consecutively. Also, 2 counts of cruelty to juveniles, 2 counts, 10 years on each of those running concurrent with the 15-year consecutive sentences. Your parole eligibility date was February 4th, 2013. You are not eligible to earn good time, and you have a full term date, February 8, 2033. Is all that accurate information?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you answer any questions Ms. Ledoux may have?
Good morning, Ms. Littlefield.
Yes, ma'am.
How old were you when this crime was committed?
31.
31 years old. Had you, were you or had you been?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question? You broke up a little bit.
Okay. Were you or had you been married at the point that this crime was committed?
No, ma'am. Well, I was divorced.
Okay. You had 3 sons. Were they by your husband? Were they by the same person or?
No, ma'am.
So how many fathers were there?
3.
And were any of them your ex-husbands?
Yes, ma'am. My middle son, Jesse.
Okay. What was your relationship with your co-defendant? What was the relationship?
He was I employed him to watch the children while I went to school and worked full-time. And he was like responsible for any household stuff that needed to be done, repairs and the like.
How did you choose him for that position? Is this somebody that you knew and had knowledge of their character, or how did you choose this person?
My mother-in-law referred him to me. She knew him and his family, had watched him grow up and knew he was good with his siblings, children, his nieces and nephews, the neighborhood kids that were in that area. So she referred him to me.
I will say, for the record, reading your the arrest report was very, very difficult for me.
Yes, ma'am.
How long did the alleged or the crime, how long did these crimes take place? Over a period of months?
I believe it was like a 10-month time period, ma'am.
I noticed that you have you ever appealed your case? You've appealed your case, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So do you maintain your innocence to this day, or?
I maintain the fact that I did not see anything, but that does not release me from the culpability. Because at the end of the day, it was my bad decision to bring this person into my home and not bother to check when I was told, oh, everything is fine. Everything is fine. And then when I did see my kids and, hey, how's it going, guys? Like on a day off, and they didn't say anything. It was because, I'm sorry.
I have to interrupt, but they did admit that you knew.
Again, I did not know. Had I have known, I would have immediately intervened, removed them from the house and gone to the nearest law enforcement, police station, fire department, whoever, because I believe my children when they say that happened.
Can you tell me where your children are today?
I know where my oldest is, Justin, but Jesse and Thomas, I don't know where they are at.
And Justin is residing with your father, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sure we're going to hear more in a little bit about your programs while you've been incarcerated. You have availed yourself of lengthy educational programs. So what were you going to college or school for when you left your children?
Carpentry, woodworking, furniture making, cabinet making.
So while they were being cared for by this man, that's the program you were going for?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So had you ever had long-term employment? Apparently you were working. What kind of employment did you have?
I worked at Walmart, ma'am. I was a cashier and also a stocking employee.
So when you say, when I saw my sons, I asked them how it was going. You didn't see them very often while you were working, caring for them?
No, ma'am. I had to be at school for 7 a.m., got out of school at 3, had to be to work for 5 p.m., and did not get off until 1 o'clock in the morning.
We have a lot of people who want to speak in support and opposition, and I'll go ahead and Mr. Not to retain my questioning if I need to later. Is that okay? Sure. Okay.
Let me just ask a couple of questions, Ms. Littlefield. I noticed in your criminal history in 1992, there was an arrest in Nevada for child abuse. Can you explain
Yes.
that?
Yes, ma'am. My, at the time, boyfriend and I had an argument. There was a gun in his nightstand that he had a permit for. The clip for the gun was in the dresser. When the DA reviewed the case, he said that that it never should have gone that far, and he dismissed all charges.
Okay, and then I have 1997, there was a domestic violence arrest in Nevada also.
My mother and I had gotten into an argument, which is how I found out I had a warrant for a traffic ticket that I thought I had paid, but did not. And that's where that arrest stemmed from.
Domestic violence?
No, my arrest, no, I don't understand where that came from. My mother and I were in an argument, just a typical mother-daughter argument.
So, just one more thing, you indicated to Ms. Ledoux that you believe that, if your children said these things happened to them, that it did in fact happen to you.
Yes,
That-
ma'am. I fully believe them when they say these horrendous acts happen to them.
All right, well, I just said that because I wanted to let you know that our record indicates that one of your children, when they were being interviewed on more than one occasion by folks who were investigating this crime, said that his mother, Michelle Littlefield, was present and witnessed these offenses. She didn't stop Bert and continued to allow Bert to access him, allowing Bert to reoffend. He noted she saw it every time.
I will maintain again that no, I was never there. Had I have been there, I'd have picked up the phone and dialed 911. I'd have grabbed the children and gotten them out of there and brought them immediately to the nearest law enforcement, police station, fire department, whoever I could access first to report this.
And thank you. Any questions, Ms. Stokely?
Yeah, just to continue on, I'd seen the same things that Chairman Renata saw. Just to continue on with the testimony that the children gave to the Child Advocacy Center, but immediately after they moved in with foster parents. It's not unusual for children to be in an environment where they feel like they're not going to be out of their environment. If you were to say, is everything fine, for a child to be fearful of telling the truth, because quite often they fear retaliation from that very person that's doing harm to them. So it says here, after moving in with their foster parents, the children described physical and sexual abuse by Stockstill, some of which took place in the defendant's presence and in her presence. The children also said to the foster parents that episodes of physical abuse committed against them by the defendant, that you were there and that you laughed about it. So their story is very different from yours.
Yes, ma'am. Again, I would never laugh at that. That would be beyond the most cruel thing.
Okay, well, just,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm like Ms. Ledoux. The things that happened to these children were horrendous. And
Yes, ma'am.
that's all I have to say.
I think that for now concludes our questions. Warden LeBlanc, can you tell us anything about Ms. Littlefield?
To report, since she's been here at LCIW, she's been here about 17 years. She hasn't had any write-ups since 2011, which is almost 13 years report-free. And only in that time period where she did have write-ups, it was about 6 write-ups. You know, with all of her documentation, she's attended a lot of classes while she was here. And it also shows on the risk need assessment score that she is low on that. So she has been busy, at least doing classes and whatnot while she's been here.
Good, thank you. All right, we'll hear from the folks who want to speak in support first. We'll hear first from, we'd like to hear from Mr. Redmond, Ms. Littlefield's father. Mr. Redmond. Is he still with us?
It's Mr. Redmond.
Mr. Redmond, are you there with us? He was there. He wasn't.
Yeah, now can you hear me?
Sir, we can. We can't see you, but we can hear you. We'd like to hear what you'd like us to know about Miss Michelle.
Well, it's while she's been there, she has attended many different classes, some of which were too difficult for me to even understand. But it was like a kid coming home to their parents with a report card. She was always anxious to tell me her grades. And I've always enjoyed her telling me that, oh, I got 97%, I got in the 90s. And so she was always telling me about her scores and her grades.
Great, thank you. Thank you, sir. Moving on, Ms. Stodd, could we hear from you now, please?
Good morning, Ms. Renata and the board. I apologize about not being on camera. My phone is not letting me get on, but I just wanted to take an opportunity and say over the last 7 years, Michelle Littlefield is in cohort 1 of our college and prison program at the Louisiana Correctional Institute for Women. I started Operation Restoration 8 years ago after my own experience for incarceration. I went to prison at the age of 19 and was released at 29. And just realized there weren't any services and resources available for women who have been incarcerated. Over the last 3 years, we've served about 2,300 women by providing over 17,000 services across Louisiana and a few other states. And the thing that I've consistently saw from Michelle in our interactions during her time in the program is that she does accept responsibility for not protecting her children. In this instance, I think that she has taken tremendous steps toward becoming a better person and focusing on the things that matter, which is changing who she is during her lengthy incarceration. I do recommend her being recommended for parole, and also knowing that she'll have an organization that will come to her aid and help her to re-enter, re-enter society successfully. But by providing whatever services that she may need, we can support with housing, food assistance, supporting her to continue her education once she is released, as well as a multitude of other things, access to counseling and healthcare, and all of the things that a person needs once they're released to maintain becoming a contributing member of society.
Right, and thank you very much for the work that you do and for being here to speak with us this morning. Now with Operation Restoration, we'd like to hear from Tracy Pratt. Step up to the podium.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Tracy Pratt. I'm the Higher Education Administrator at Operation Restoration. So I work at LCIW. I work directly with Ms. Littlefield, and I work directly with Dr. Marco Savaggio, who's the director for the two-lane program, and with Sarita, of course, who is my boss. So I just want to point out that we have an incredibly successful higher education program. Our students are completing bachelor's degrees. Several of them have been released. 5 of them are still continuing their studies. And one of them, who was released just several months ago on parole, is going to be our very first graduate. She's actually been able to accelerate her courses since she has gotten out. All of our students have above average GPAs. And then, of course, with OR, we're going to be able to provide extensive wraparound services for Ms. Littlefield, and I'm sure she's going to be just as successful as all of our other students. I also wanted to bring this in. There's a task force recently with a resolution in the House of Representatives that has permitted the study of education in higher education in prisons, education in general, but they specifically talk about it, and they have noticed that here in Louisiana, whereas a college education reduces recidivism by 27.7% and increases employment by 10.5% over 3 years. And so with the reinstatement of Pell programs, I really feel like Michelle is going to be just another wonderful example of success upon reentry, and we are here to support her in all of this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you much. Now we'll hear from opposition. Could we hear from Mr. Chris O'Brien? So if you want.
You want to wait just a second?
Yeah, just wait just a second. In fact, if you want to just step aside. Yeah, there you go. And then we'll take it from there. You're fine.
You're fine right here.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. We met Michelle Littlefield and her sons when we became foster parents. We fostered her oldest, Justin, for 1 day, her middle son, Jesse, for several years, and her youngest, then Thomas, later Dylan, for several years. These are the boys when they first came to us. This is Dylan. By this time that you see in this picture, he had already been raped and sodomized multiple times by multiple men in the presence of and with the encouragement of Michelle Littlefield. This is her son, Jesse. He was with us for multiple years. By the time you see him in this picture, he had been raped, sodomized, had played a game called where Bert, excuse the language, ladies and gentlemen, but shit in his eye with the permission and encouragement of Michelle Littlefield. That had already happened to him at this age when you see him in this picture. We were told the boys had been neglected. Details of this came out in the court hearings that followed. The youngest was found wandering the streets in a very dirty diaper. We thought that was horrible, and little did we know that this was nothing compared to the horror that was to come. The boys' fits of anger became more frequent and violent the older they got. The oldest was very smart and defended Michelle completely. Both younger boys said they saw him and Michelle having sex. When I asked the social worker, how is that even physically possible in a boy that young, they assured me it was possible, and I didn't want to hear any more after that. The boys reported early on that Michelle hit them, punched them, and beat them. They told about her swinging knives around, cutting them with these knives, threatening them with these knives. Jesse had a burn scar on his arm that he showed me, and he said Michelle used a cigarette to burn him on his arm. He had frequent violent outbursts at school and at her home. The beginning of the horror stories were when he said Bert stuck a stick in his butt, it hurt, and the white stuff came out. Well, I knew enough to know what that meant. CPS was informed immediately, and this started a horror tale of what came out. The boys mimicked sex on a toy. They pumped a toy to show me what Bert had done to them. They chose, by the way, to call her Michelle rather than Mom. Dylan eventually told me that he was raped and sodomized by Bert and by Dewey Lee and other men in the presence of and with the permission of Michelle. He said Michelle cheered on the rapist while they were raping her children. Dylan told me that he often ate pet food because he was not fed. He told me about being bent over in the living room in front of a dusty TV. He could see Bert's reflection on the TV screen behind him, raping him. He looked down as the blood dripped off of his penis. Michelle was in the room encouraging Bert to continue. How can you know this and still have the same view of the world? My husband and I were unable to tell our families and friends the horrors that these boys told us. Because when we told anybody, they just couldn't hear it anymore. They said, "Stop, I can't even listen to this anymore." The boys reported Bert as a frequent rapist. Michelle initially claimed she did not even know anyone named Bert. She protected the man that had repeatedly raped her boys. It was discovered that she had been arrested for a minor marijuana charge with Bert Stockstill, so she did know him despite her denial. He was her roommate. The boys described being raped and beaten by Bert and by Dewey Lee and others with Michelle present. She cheered on grown men while they anally raped her boys who were younger than 7 or 3. She brought home multiple men to have sex with them. Boys did not know who these men were or how Michelle knew them. They described multiple men coming to their home, raping them. They described getting off of the school bus to find strange men waiting at their home to rape them on multiple occasions. Eventually, they described being placed in a ring of white powder with candles all around. They described a dark room and people in robes with hoods all around. They were raped at these gatherings. The boys talked about games with excrement they were forced to play. The descriptions were graphic and disgusting. Were hard to hear, of course.
Ms. O'Brien, we did receive your letter and we read it in great detail. That we're past our 3-minute limit. Can you just summarize the rest of what you'd like to say, please?
Boys had a rough life, and Dylan and I had several conversations as an adult where he told me he went to see Michelle in prison, and he said that he talked to her until he got her to cry because that was the only way he could get back at her. He said if he could get to her, he would kill her. He said he had a hard life, that because of the things in his head that he knew he had been through, he found it difficult to go on with his life, and he shot himself in the chest. And he died. He died on October 21st, 2022.
You know what? Thank God for a little time in their life. They had you and your husband to show them a different way and a different type of people.
Thank you.
So-
Yes, we could. It wasn't enough. Multiple psychiatrists, psychiatric, inpatient, stays for boys. It wasn't enough to fix it.
No,
Couldn't do it.
but they had you for a little while. And, thank goodness. Thank you for sharing. I know, we know that it's very difficult to come to something like this. And to recant, but you know what? To recant what was done is to tell their truth. And it's important that people listen. I do understand where people will say, I can't hear anymore, and they say, you know, they don't want to. But it's the reality that those children live through. So, you know, it's something that people need to know because it exists every day. So thank you for being brave enough to come here and being kind enough to have those children.
Thank you for being here this morning. We're going to ask Ms. Littlefield if she has a statement to make. Ms. Littlefield, is there a brief statement you'd like to make before we turn it over to the DA's office?
Yes, ma'am. At 30 years old, I've yet again made another bad decision and choice because I didn't know there was other choices out there. In the classes I've taken, such as victim awareness, that it's the victim first and the victim needs to be believed. In classes such as Thinking for a Change, I've learned that there's more than just the one option or two options that you can see in front of you. And there's no way to go back and undo the bad choices and bad decisions that I've made. And I can't, saying I'm sorry means so little because of the horrors that they had to endure, that I had no idea about. But what they say happened to them, I will not disbelieve. And knowing that they couldn't trust me enough to say, Mom, help. That tears at me that I wasn't there. I wasn't the mom they deserved. I didn't have the decision and choice making skills and tools that I have now to stop and think, to listen, to look around, to be present with more than just a body to say, hey, I'm here, but to actively listen to what's being said, to read body language when nonverbal communication is trying to be made. I don't have any more words. I'm sorry, and at some point in time, I hope that can be believed that I am so very sorry that I didn't pay attention to what was going on, that I wasn't there.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you for your remarks. We'd like to hear from the DA's office to close it out for us, please.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so very much. Good morning.
Good morning.
This is stunning, but I think everybody in the room, this lady says she didn't do anything. She says she's legally innocent, that these children are lying. She just got up in front of you, and I wrote this down, quote, I believe my children when they say that happened, but not when they say that she was there for it. She doesn't believe that. I have to take issue with the lady over here from Operation Restoration, which I was not familiar with. She says that Ms. Littlefield accepts responsibility. Her own client says she doesn't. She disagrees with it. She doesn't accept responsibility at all. To listen to her, she wasn't present. The children are lying. Why did she plead guilty and took the 30-year sentence? She's been sitting in prison now for years, and this is what she comes up with to say to this board? I want to thank Ms. O'Brien for being here today, because as a prosecutor who spent a good deal of my career dealing with cases like this, I know how difficult it is to get up here and even read this stuff, much less discuss it and talk about it. I also appreciate your service today too, because I know how difficult it is for you to listen to this. I don't have a whole lot to say to wrap up. These facts and this defendant are depraved. Any decent person would be made sick by them because these crimes are an assault not only on the victims, but upon decency itself. There isn't much that the district attorney can add factually that isn't described graphically in both the First Circuit opinion and the DPP report and the victim impact statement. One victim is dead of suicide, and in a violent manner which adds insult to the injuries inflicted by the crimes committed here. The other spent years in treatment and now cannot even be found. All sex crimes prosecutors know that the horror for victims doesn't end upon conviction of the offender, and this case is a terrible example. These crimes are evil at a level of cruelty and depravity that is impossible to comprehend. And this defendant, as much as any, deserves to serve the full term of her sentence. Nothing can mitigate what she has done. If you have any inclination to grant parole in this matter, which I don't think you do, but if you do, please ask yourself one question. Could you ever reasonably trust this defendant within a mile of a child? If you have no questions for me, that's all I have.
No questions. Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming too, Mr. Wilson.
Ms. Littleton, we do have opposition in the record expressed. There was no comment from the sentencing judge. Of course, we've heard from the DA's office, and the sheriff's office in St. Tammany is also opposed. And of course, you've heard the victim opposition today. I think we're prepared to vote. Mrs. Ledoux?
For a plethora of reasons, my vote today is to deny parole. I will cite law enforcement opposition, lack of acceptance in the role of the crime and the nature of the crime.
Ms. Stapleton?
Yes, I agree to deny. That would be my vote. Also, the nature of the crime and law enforcement opposition, district attorney opposition, and then the victim opposition, the parent of one of the children.
My vote today, Ms. Littleton, also is to deny. I will acknowledge you really applied yourself while you've been incarcerated, but I still see a lack of acceptance for what you did and the impact it had on your children. My vote today, based on the opposition that we have in the record and that which we have heard from today, is to deny your parole. Good luck to you, ma'am.
Thank you.
That concludes our business at the women's prison. We're going to sign off at 10:16. Thank you, Warden.
All right, thank y'all.
You know, that's like, either deny, the decision form paperwork, or sign.
All right, good morning. Committee on Parole is reconvening at 10:22 a.m. on June 4th, 2024. We are now at David Wade Correctional Center. Thanks for accommodating us there, Warden. And I'd like to ask the Warden to introduce yourself and ask your staff to do the same, please.
Good morning, Michelle Dozat, Warden. Deputy Warden Brenda Ackland. Anna Ross. Harbor Classification.
Danny Henshaw classification. Deputy Warden Arnold.
All right, well, thank you all. We got the 18 today, I see. Thanks for being here with us. We appreciate it. And we have before us Mr. Coleman. Is that you?
Yes, ma'am. Marcus Purnell Coleman,
And what's your DOC number, sir?
322817.
All right, Mr. Coleman, let me, I have to acknowledge some of the folks who've joined us today by Zoom. You can see Tessa Reeder, your fiance. I believe you can see her on the screen. She wants to speak on your behalf, and we'll ask her to do so at the appropriate time. Here with us in Baton Rouge, we're at DOC headquarters. We have Ms. Jill Durant. I'm sorry if I mispronounced the name, and her husband, Jeff. Emily Desatel, Glenn George, and Kim Womack, and we'll be hearing from some of those folks at the appropriate time. We'll call on them for their remarks. Mr. Coleman, at the end, you'll be allowed to make a statement if you'd like to do so. First, I'll read some identifying information into the record and ask you to verify it, and then we'll conduct a parole interview. I'll take the lead on that interview because your case has been assigned to me. Once me and my colleagues have completed the interview, we'll hear from Warden Dozat and then from those who've indicated they'd like to speak to it. Okay, you understand that process?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Mr. Coleman, let me introduce the parole panel to you. I'm Cheryl Renanza. Seated to my left is Ms. Ledoux, and to my right is Mrs. Stapleton. So let's see. Mr. Coleman, your master prison record has you classified as a third felony offender. You're currently serving a 99-year sentence as a habitual offender for armed robbery. Your parole eligibility date is October 14, 2024. And you have a good time date, which is in 2102. Does all that information sound correct to you?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So tell us, Mr. Coleman, how old are you now?
50, ma'am. 50.
Age 50. How long have you been incarcerated on this crime?
19 years and I think like 8 months, 9 months.
Almost 20 years. Now, I mentioned that your master prison record shows you as a third felony offender, but when they did the pre-parole investigation, I think that it was determined that you're a sixth felony offender. Does that sound right to you? How many times have you been arrested?
I got 4 convictions.
Well, that's not what I asked. How many times have you been arrested?
14 times.
14 times. All right. So let's talk about, so you were at Angola during this period of incarceration from 2007 to 2022. So you've been there at David Wade a little over a year, about a year and a half. I want to know, what have you been doing for the past 19 and a half years, 19 years?
Well, first I was in a hobby shop in Angola, and I've learned a lot about taking responsibilities. I was also trying to find a way to, come to the understanding of who I am. And I know for a long time I've been living with denial, and I've come to understand today that denial has been keeping me trapped in my downward spiral. And I understand today that, being able to understand that the things that I've done and the harm that I've caused others was solely because of me. And I've been taking time out lately to find out who I am and identifying with different aspects of my life, such as coming to understand that in order for me to be able to live a productive life, I have to understand what being productive is. And all these times that I've committed these crimes, I understand that it was nobody's fault but my own. So I just been trying to live my life of, trying to do the right thing and continue being productive.
So you say you've been working on that lately. You've been working on that since you've been there at Wade?
Well, when I came to Wade, and the difference in Wade and Angola is because in Angola you have facilitators, and I thank the warden for giving us an opportunity to come here from Angola and have real assessors here, like the teachers. And with their teaching, it taught me something that I didn't learn in Angola. Angola is like he was going to class every day and just leaving without anything. Leaving from David Wade, you have substance. It teaches you how to understand your responsibilities. It teaches me how to understand that the cause of my actions. For so long, I've been falling into the courts thinking that it was the district attorney or it was the evidence against me that was the problem. But all along, I realized it wouldn't have been no problem with the district attorneys or the evidence if I wouldn't have committed the crime that I committed. And I've learned that at David Wade that being in denial has always kept me down. And like I said, I thank the warden for having me here at David Wade to learn these things.
All right. Well, you mentioned court. I see you had a court trip in July of 2023. What did you go to court for in July of last year?
I went because, like I was saying, I was in a situation to where I'm just trying to go home, and I was looking at the discrepancies and the evidence in my case, and I just, not saying that I wasn't guilty, but it's just that I felt like there was other things that could have been done, and I could have received another trial and went through another trial. As far as the guilt of the trial, I have responsibility, and I take full responsibility, accountability for my actions.
And that's interesting that you say that, because in the record, we do have opposition. We'll hear from some of it here today. But the district attorney's office notes that you continue to assert factual innocence, no remorse or admission of wrongdoing for the violent armed robbery the second time. How would you respond to those remarks?
Well, I responded to that in 2021. I think I filed 2 motions into the district attorney's office expressing remorse. I sought 2 plea bargain assessment under 930.10, and the district attorney refused both of them. Within those proceedings, I requested and I specifically asked that they consider me taking a plea bargain as beginning prior to my trial. So I accepted full responsibility, but the district attorney denied it.
Denied the plea deal?
Yes, yes, and the remorse that I was shown within trying to get a plea bargain accepted.
All right, so you've admitted now today that, you accept the guilt. So tell us what happened.
Well, I take full responsibility of my actions because, like I said, it didn't have anything to do with my upbringing. I take full responsibility because I understood what I was doing at the time that I did it. All right,
what did you do? What did you do is what I'm trying to get at. I want to hear you say what you did.
Well, I went to Lake Charles, Louisiana in search of someone to give me money so I can use drugs. I intentionally followed Ms. Dozart from the ATM banking up to Casamillana. And when I got to that point, I asked my co-defendants to let me out. And I went up behind her and I grabbed her and I led her to Ryan Street, and I got her purse and I had a gun to her, and I jumped in the vehicle and we sped off.
You had a gun to her?
Yes, ma'am.
What'd you say to her?
I told her if she do not give me the money, that I was going to hurt her.
Did she talk to you?
Yeah, she kept telling me, no, take the purse, take the money, just don't do this. She kept asking me not to do it. She kept pleading with me not to. And I refused to hear her.
I noticed your progress report indicates that you're classified as medium custody. You've had 18 write-ups in your 19 years. The last was a low court write-up in 2021. You agree with that?
Yes, ma'am.
You've done anger management in 2023, thinking for change, 2022. You did victim awareness and victim accountability letter. Are you currently enrolled in Living in Balance?
No, I just graduated from Living in Balance about 2 weeks ago. I'm currently involved in reentry.
Okay. So you, what is your job?
I work on Crew 1.
What's Crew 1?
It's like a field
Field?
crew. Yes, ma'am.
So when's the last time you went out to work?
Last week, and we go this afternoon.
What did you do last week? What was the job assignment?
Well, what we do is we do like general pickup, like so far as like cleaning up the areas, sweeping, mopping, raking leaves.
In the yard?
Yes, ma'am.
So why would you think as part of this process, we asked your work supervisor to evaluate your work and you rated fair? Why would you say that is your rating?
Well, be honest with you, I do not understand why. I don't know. I can't answer that. I don't.
So the options are excellent, good, fair, or poor. And you rated, you don't know why? You do a good job for it?
Well, I mean, we had just started working not even a good three weeks ago, so I don't know. I really don't know.
Okay, so I want you to tell me why you believe after serving only 19 years of a 50-year sentence, considering your criminal history, your arrest history, your conviction history, and the fact that just in the last year and a half, you started to find out who you really are. Why do you think we ought to consider early release?
Well, I believe that, first to start within, and I believe that the person I am today, I live with integrity, I live with morals, I live with principles now that at one point in time, I can honestly say that I didn't have. Right now, I believe that I can be productive in society because I have family support, I have moral stability now that I never had before. I have job opportunities, I have job skills, I have the necessary tools to be able to go out there and not to have to function like I was before. At one point in time, I used to be strung out on drugs real bad. And I can honestly say now I've been off of drugs for 15 years and I live day to day, keeping my mind focused on doing the right thing. And I struggled with drugs for a long time, but the drugs wasn't the problem, it was me. And then being able to identify who I am. Today I identify who I am. And I believe that I can go out there and do the things that are required of me. And I also understand that if released, I still will have approximately 80-something years left on parole. So that would give me a motivation to go out there and continue doing the right thing.
You ever been on parole before?
Yes, ma'am.
You were on supervision when you committed this crime?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So you have not been successful on parole. My notes say you have a history of revocations.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Well, I don't have any other questions. I'm going to defer to my colleagues and then we'll hear more. Any questions?
I just have one question. She did repeatedly ask you to let her go, that you could have the purse and go, but you didn't want to do that. You kept dragging her and she had to fight to get away. So what was your plans if you got her in the vehicle and took off with her? What were you going to do with her? I mean, you had the purse.
Okay, to be honest with you, it never was my intention of bringing in a vehicle. The only thing I was trying to do is get the money and get away. Looking back, I mean, I can honestly say that I've never really planned to, and I'm not trying to minimize, I wasn't trying to commit any harm. I was just trying to scare her like I've did in plenty other times, and that's all I did. I mean.
Any other times you had other armed robberies?
Yes, ma'am. When I committed the first armed robbery, I did the same thing.
Oh,
Threatened. Yes, ma'am.
Just followed the same pattern.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, that was my question.
Thank you. Warden Dozat?
Marcus came to us in November of 2022. He is currently still in reentry, as he stated. I will note that the majority of the programming that he's taken, with the exception of an art class in 2014, was taken in 2022. Since he's been here, the classes that he took, he hasn't had any write-ups since he's been here. He is in medium custody. He works on our grounds crew, which is assigned by dormitory. So he works according to that schedule. So we don't have any issues out of him. He did complete his living in balance, as he said, and victim awareness in 2022, and cage your rage in 23. So that's all he has.
So he's been busy since he's been at your place. Good, thank you. Mr. Coleman, we're going to ask Ms. Reeder. We'd like to hear her comments now. Ms. Reeder, what would you like us to know? You're on mute. Can you unmute?
Okay, you can hear me now?
I am.
Okay. When I met Marcus, I met Marcus in jail. I was in 2006. And I didn't know nothing about his past record or anything like that. Marcus become to be real close. We came to be real close to each other. And I understand that Marcus was becoming better than what he was in jail from the robbery from this lady. Due to this time of visiting Marcus, I believe he's seen changes in himself that Marcus began to show me. Marcus has shown me to look in life from an understanding the way of others. I believe that the person Marcus is today can and will be used to help others. I believe Marcus can and will be the better person in our life, of other people's. I believe Marcus has received points of his life and family and understand the pain for he caused this lady and her family, and as well as his family. I believe that Marcus was not the person who I knew when he was in jail. I've written everything down so I won't forget nothing. I believe that if Marcus was not the person who I know he is today, that he should not be released. The person he is today is not who he was 20 years ago. I understand the pain, the hurt, the fear of that come with being hurt by over time, over it. I understand that what Marcus did was not right in the eyes of the law, and he had to pay for it. But I do understand that 20 years is enough time. I believe today is the new day for Marcus. I believe with my support and family and his family support, Marcus can be willing and grateful of belief. I believe he understands what he did and he regrets what he did was done. I believe he will never put us in the painful place ever again. I think you are hearing me out, and I ask you all accept Marcus Coleman today as a changed person and allow him to come home to his family. I ask that this lady and her family accept this as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reader. Thanks for your comments. Now we'll hear from the victim and the victim's family. I'm gonna let you all decide who wants to go first. Go ahead, if you just step up there and introduce yourself and tell us. Now put her on mute.
Okay. Thank y'all for giving us this opportunity to share our side of the story. It's interesting to me that here we are today, for the first time, we've heard Marcus Coleman admit his guilt. Before today, he has played the victim part. He was like, this was the only crime that was ever on his plate, and he was wrongly accused. I'm thankful for the penitentiary systems, and I'm glad that Marcus is taking advantage of the structure, the discipline that they offer, and trying to get his life in some sort of order. I'm going to keep this as short as possible because first man, deserves to be heard. Want her to have time. I'm here mostly, and she can speak for herself more better than I can. I'm mostly here for the future victims of Marcus Coleman should he be let out. The man has demonstrated he cannot be rehabilitated. If you had noticed, just like we did, he talks about remorse, but he doesn't feel it. He has regret, which is different. If he gets out and he's away from this structure and discipline that's provided for him in the penitentiary, he doesn't know anything else. The only thing that he will have learned is his next victim won't survive. Because if he had gotten Jill in that car and killed her and dumped her somewhere, it would have been the next crime that he would have committed and would have gotten caught for that would have put him in jail. But she wouldn't be here to testify. That's our concern. I'm speaking on behalf of the future victims.
Thank you, sir.
I'm not good at speaking from people in real America, so I'm gonna do my best. I'm here today to ask you to deny Marcus Coleman. Let me just start with how shocked I was when I got the letter saying he was done. I thought it was gonna be a long time before this came. We just went to court a couple of months before, like Jeff said, and he was saying he was wrongly accused, like he was sitting there saying, I picked the first person that I could pick, so he was fighting with them. And it's because, if I understand it, because of geriatric reasons, but to me, he's not too old to still commit crimes. Seems old to start new careers, but anyway, I just don't understand how he has the opportunity to be up for this. This has been a never-ending battle, though. This is not. We've had to go back multiple times to court, and like I said, each time it's been he hasn't admitted it wasn't him. He hasn't shown guilt. He hasn't shown remorse. It wasn't him. He's been trying to prove how it was not him. But let me say, I don't have hate for Marcus. I don't wish bad for him. I don't. But what I do want, and I think that I deserve, is justice. And I looked up the definition of justice. And it said that the administration of what is just or fair, and or the assignments of rewards or punishment that are due. So to me, justice for Marcus would be to serve his full sentence. That's what's due. And I'm not against giving someone second chances, third chances. I'm really not. Like I think people can be rehabilitated. But they have to be making some effort, not just when it's all of a sudden I'm up for parole, so I'm going to make it. He's had multiple chances. And each time that he's gotten out, he's reverted back to a lighter crime. He's proven that he can't live in society and be productive. He's proven that he's going to harm or take from society. Those are the kind of people that have to live in prison. So everything in me wishes for him that I could change all this. I wish I could give him a refund button. I wish I could give him a do-over. Force him to make the right decision, but I can't. That's not a possibility. So in life, we have to stand by the choices that we make and we have to suffer the consequences of our choices. That's just life. I especially wish that I could go back to the evening of October 9th, 2004 and try to say something different other than what I said. I tried every angle. I fought him. I begged. I pleaded. I talked. He had, first of all, following me, he had long enough time to change his mind. And then with me, I'm like, listen, I have $40. Let me show you my $40. Just take my 40. He had my purse, so why wasn't he on his way? And like Jeff said too. The things, I'm here and I'm thankful that I'm here and my story ended okay and I'm glad. But what he almost took for me, what he almost took for my children, what he almost took for my grandchildren. Like Jeff said, the next person that might be what happens. It's already underneath that. Anyway, I've often wondered about his childhood. If it was good, if it was bad. That night I asked him about that. I said, do you have a mom and do you have a grandma? Like who raised you? And we talked about a lot of different things. But anyway, I said, what did your mom or what did your grandma think about this? If you have a sister, if you have a daughter, what would you think if this was happening to her? And he did mention his grandma. So I don't know if his grandma raised him. I don't know if he had a good raising or bad raising. But it doesn't matter if you had a good raising or a bad raising. It doesn't matter if you had the proper love or the proper guidance. It just comes to a time in life where you have to choose what kind of person that you want to be, regardless of your child. I know then and I know now that he knew right from wrong. There was nothing wrong with him. He's capable of knowing right from wrong, and each time he is chosen over and over to go back to doing wrong. But to me, if he hated being incarcerated so badly and he wanted to be out, why, when he got out, did he alter his behavior or do whatever it took to not have to go back? And sorry if I'm repeating, but understand, up until today, he has never admitted guilt or remorse. He has expressed that he feels he was falsely accused, wrongly identified, and he felt like his freedom was taken. But it wasn't. He gave it away. He took my freedom. He took my sense of security. He gave it. Anyway, I just wonder if he's ever pondered that, like the impact that it had on me, and sheer care of that. You feel when somebody has you at gunpoint and what you think is going to happen, like the tool that means from someone. I don't know. Maybe that's what he learns in his life. But I hope that he realizes that he's in prison because of the choices that he made. It came from no one but him. I didn't do this. It's my sincere hope that he has changed, or that he will change, or that his rehabilitated. But he still needs to remain in prison to serve his full sentence that was given to him. He used up all his chances to prove himself that he reformed long ago. As pitiful as that seems, that he might just stay in jail, he still can have a life of fulfillment, peace, joy, and pride, knowing that he finally, for the first time, chose to do the right thing, to admit his guilt, serve his sentence that was given to him. Lastly, if he gets out, I fear for my life, my family's life, and my grandbaby's lives. I don't want to spend my life looking over my shoulder, nor do I feel I should have to. My life, my family's life, and no one's life, for that fact, is worth taking the chance to see what's he going to do if he gets out. It just like it. Anyway, my greatest fear is that the next time he will not leave a victim to tell their story or to beg for his parole to be denied. Please look at his record and what he's done each time he's gotten out. It's my plea that you make him serve his whole sentence that is due him and deny him parole. I ask you, do you want him to be your neighbor? Do you want him to be your grandchild's neighbor? Your mother?
Yes, ma'am.
Please don't take it as a thing what will happen when he gets out.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for your remarks. Mr. George, I'm going to ask you to be brief, sir.
I will. My name is Clay George. I'm the pastor of the First Baptist Church in Gillis. Because our family have been members there for a long time, I've been the pastor for 22 years. In addition, they are tremendous friends to our family, and our families are very close. Our children grew up together. And I'm here today just to tell you that over the years, this experience has taken a hard toll on their family, and especially on Jill. And I I volunteered to come just to be a witness to what has gone on. As a pastor, I don't know everything that goes on in their family, obviously, but I have a special insight in the times that we've been able to counsel about this event. I've been able to see how it's affected her, Jeff, the kids. And I would just strongly urge the board to consider, what happens from this point if Mr. Coleman gets parole. I don't think I can say any better than Jeff, but it would result in a lot of insecurity. It would result in dredging up a fresh amount of fear and insecurity when she's been working for 20 years to put this behind her. And so I just wanted to come today to let you know that that's been her experience. We've been witnesses of it. Her family has walked with him through this and seen that it was a very, very real struggle and a horrible thing that no one should ever have to go through. And so I'm just asking y'all to exercise the wisdom that you have to exercise in this case. I'm asking you not only to deny this parole, but if you can extend the period of time that exists for him to come up for parole again, that would be such a gracious thing. We would appreciate that so much. I want to thank you for your service and thank you for your time.
And thank you, sir. Appreciate your remarks as well. Mr. Coleman, is there a brief statement you'd like to make to the panel before we vote?
Yes, ma'am. Considering all that was said, I can't help but to agree because that's who I was. I was that person 20 years ago. I was that person the better part of my life. I was a person who did everything they said, and right now today I can never get back or take back anything. But the person who I am today, I look at myself different today. I live with a certain type of gratitude of myself because I understand that the person who received those 99 years for that armed robbery on October the 9th, 2004, I deserved the 99 years. Looking back at who I was, I deserved to be in here for the rest of my life, considering who I was. But the person who I am today, I do not look at myself at that. I live according to the rules. I lived in a structured environment for the past 20 years, and I've done my best to show that I'm capable of going out there in society and living a productive life. I don't pose a threat to nobody. I don't pose a threat to self or to others. I've learned to love everyone. I've learned to live around everyone. And I've learned to give my best foot going forward. So, I mean, I understand what happened, and I can only show full remorse today. I couldn't show remorse yesterday because I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how to apologize. I didn't know how to, just like she said, I didn't know how to accept responsibility, so everything she was saying, it is true. But I believe that today who I am, I'm not that person anymore. And I feel that I can go out there in society and be a productive citizen. And I'd like to thank the board. I'd like to thank the state of Louisiana and everybody for giving me the opportunity to be heard.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Coleman. Well said. And I think we are prepared to vote. I'll be voting first since your case was assigned to me. And I've heard everything you said. And I've heard everything everybody said. I'm glad that you are taking advantage of opportunities. It seems as though when you had a parole date, that's when you started really working on you. The record will show me, at least, that you've really been doing that work for about 1.5 years, or really since you've been at David Lane. And I appreciate your honesty about your experience in Angola and taking advantage of those facilitated classes and what have you. And then what you said about once you got to Wade, it was real to you, and you started paying attention to it, and you got stuff out of it. And so I'm encouraged by that. And I think that maybe your participation in the victim awareness and accountability classes may have been what's enabled you to admit your guilt today. And I want to acknowledge that you've done that. And it's evident in the record. This may be the first time you've said that out loud. So I'm really pleased that you've been able to do that. I don't think 1.5 years is long enough for the damage that you've inflicted on this family. I mean by 1.5 years of you working on yourself. I know you've done almost 20 years, but it's just not quite sufficient. I'd like to see you get some more, programming under your belt, maybe, come back to us whenever you've done that and stay right up free. And I think you'll be a stronger person for it. My vote today, based on the opposition that's been expressed here today and in the record, is to deny your parole. Ms. Ledoux.
Mr. Coleman, that epiphany, your epiphany and your change of heart will do you a world of good. It will also do the facility good, because your behavior will reflect your change of heart. But today, based on the factors we've discussed, my vote is also to deny your parole.
Mrs. Stapleton.
I agree with everything that Ms. Renata said. I vote to deny. And I'd like to tell the victim, I'm glad she had the opportunity to give her full statement and you had to listen to it quietly. And I'm glad that all of you were able to come here today. And I would hope that Mr. Coleman, you stay on the same path that you've been on, like Ms. Renata said, the past year and a half. And you heard your victim. So vote today is to deny.
All right, Mr. Coleman. Keep doing what you're doing. Stay on the path. Good luck to you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we're back in session at 11:11, and we have before us Mr. Green. Is that you?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you introduce yourself? Tell us your name and DOC number.
My name is Reginald Green. My DOC number is 345-421.
All right, let me introduce the panel to you. My name is Cheryl Renanza. This is Mrs. Ledoux to my left, Mrs. Stapleton to my right. You have counsel with you who is here in the room with us today. Would you introduce yourself?
Morning, Mr. Natsa. Jane Hogan here on behalf of Reginald Green. I'll make a statement later with the board's approval.
Okay, great. Thank you. And with you, you have
Bobby Griggs.
Bobby Griggs. Okay. All right. Joining us by Zoom, we have Mr. Myers with the Parole Project, and Mr. Myers wants to speak on your behalf at the appropriate time. We'll ask him to do so. Let me open the file. Let me find it, Mr. Green. Get to the right page. All right, first, let me, and you've been through the process, so you know how this works. I'm going to read some information into the record, and then we'll have a parole interview with you. We'll hear from the warden, and then we'll hear from the Parole Project, and you'll be allowed to make a statement before Ms. Hogan will close it out for us. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Green, you are classified as a second felony offender. You're currently serving a life sentence. It's life plus 15 years. Forcible first-degree rape and attempted forcible rape. You also have on your record a habitual offender, attempted simple escape.
Yes, ma'am.
Your parole eligibility date was May 14th, 2019. You've been before the board before. It shows that you were denied in parole in June of 2020 due to a write-up. You reapplied, and during an administrative review in August of 23, you were denied. The notes also indicate that because of a write-up, but I see perhaps that write-up that they were referring to then has since been expunged.
Yes, ma'am. That is correct.
So,
Yeah, he had a write-up that was expunged, and so the August 2023 administrative hearing, I participated in. I think that they had originally denied him, but then when they realized it was expunged, they granted.
and that's why we're here.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for clarifying. I appreciate that. All right, so Mr. Green, so you've been, let's see, you were at Angola from 95 to 2011. Then you went to Hunt for about 10 years. You've been there at David Wade since October of 22.
I'm sorry, ma'am. No, I was not at Hunt for 10 years. We went to Hunt in 2011 because of the flood at Angola. We actually stayed at Hunt, I believe, 30 days.
Okay.
And we returned to Angola.
That I do see that May to June, May 16th to June 16th. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And you've been at Wade for since October of 22.
Yes, ma'am.
So let's just get some basics out of the way, Mr. Green. How old are you?
I am 48 years old.
And you've been in jail how long?
Right now, it's 30 years, ma'am.
So you've done 30 years of a life sentence, and you are eligible under the Miller ruling. Well, I guess you went back to court. Did you go back to court and got resentenced?
It's Graham.
I'm sorry, Graham. Yeah, I
He's
have
not
it.
a
Yeah,
big-
I do have Graham written down. I apologize. So tell us a little bit about what happened, Mr. Green. I noticed that at the time you were 17 of the crime, 17. And your victim at the time, how did you know her?
I met Miss Dent's through just casual acquaintance, speaking to her, and from there established a rapport with her, and she became an acquaintance of mine.
How long had you known her?
Approximately 2 days, 3 days.
So you had just recently met her.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know how old she was?
Yes, ma'am. She was 23.
So I won't go into the details, but the record indicates that Ms. Dennis was raped at knife point. Would you agree or disagree with the statement?
Yes, ma'am, I would agree to that statement.
Now, I noticed that you've taken some classes, some rehabilitative classes. Tell the panel what you think. Why do you think that happened to her?
There's no justification for my actions. It was a senseless crime that I committed and something that I'm very sorry for. I had the opportunity, as you see, to take some of the programming that was available, and I learned that there were factors that were going on in my life that I had no clue about. And I learned them from the risk management courses that I was taking. They entailed everything from drug usage, the frequency of it, the duration of it, cognitive distortions, poor impulse control, emotional negative states. It's a plethora of things that I learned based on that particular that class, and it taught me about where I was at that time, and those were the reasons that some of those things happened. That was portions of the reason why, and I didn't know it at that time. And unfortunately, I made a horrible decision, and I sexually assaulted Miss Dents.
And you think it's because of, in retrospect, you realized in the classes that you've taken that it was poor impulse control? Is that what you say?
One of the factors, ma'am, was my poor impulse control, problem with immediate gratification, drug frequency, the use of it, the duration of my use. Yes, ma'am.
So were you under the influence of drugs?
Yes, ma'am.
You had taken a nap first, though, right? Hadn't you taken a nap first?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
What kind of drugs do you think you were you under the influence of?
Before I arrived at Miss Dentz's residence, I had already used cocaine, and while I was at her residence, I used marijuana.
Mm-hmm. So how old were you when you first started using illegal drugs?
Between the ages of like 11 and 13, I want to say the very first time that I smoked marijuana, I was 13. I tried some stuff like inhalants as a younger kid, like 11 or 12 with some of my friends, but consistent drug usage started when I was about 13.
And you mentioned marijuana, and then earlier you said on the night of the crime you were under the influence of cocaine. What other kind of substances did you use and or abuse?
I also drank alcohol. On one or two occasions, I actually tried heroin, and that's about it.
What did you tell us about your home life? When you were at home, did you live with your parents?
No, ma'am. My history is I was abandoned in the house as an infant. From what I understand, I was like 6 or 7 days old. A lady found me. She began raising me. At around 5, I started experiencing. Excuse me a second. I started experiencing verbal abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse. And it continued on until the time I ran away from home.
How old were you then when you ran away?
I was 11 the first time, and then I ran away at 13.
And so you lived on the streets after that?
Yes, ma'am.
So you were in the streets from the age of 13 to this happened at 17.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you go to school?
I dropped out in the 7th grade.
How old were you then?
I think I was like 12 or 13.
13. So when you started living in the streets, you quit going to school.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So tell us what you've been doing You've been in jail, how long you said, 30 years?
Yes, ma'am.
What you been doing for the past 30 years? To work on you?
When I first got into the system, I had a problem with adjusting inside of Angola. The beginning of my stay there, it was rough. At a point, I got frustrated and disgusted with the person that I was, and I tried to start making changes for myself. So I started taking classes, and it was thinking for a change that kind of like turned my mind around for me to start trying to make better decisions. And after that, I got into risk management. And when I got into risk management, I went to realizing just the first three criteria is the justifying, the blaming, and denial. And that was when I decided that I needed to make myself a better person, because I was sick of the person who I'd been. I did everything that I could, from all of the classes that I could take, trying to prepare myself if I ever had an opportunity to get back into society, to be VOTEC ready, to have some type of job skills. I delved into community service and church. I gained a trustee status. I started working in hospice, and I just tried to do everything that I could positive.
When did you start that work?
I got my GED, I believe, in 1996. And then I started other classes. One of them, I believe I began in like 2008. And subsequently, I was placed in administrative segregation for something that I did. It short-tailed it. Then I started back in 2011. And from 2011 until now, I tried to stay on this same track.
Because I'm looking at what the institutional progress report, and I do see that you were in the risk management program from 2016 to 18. You did thinking for change in 19, anger management in 2017, living in balance also in 17. You participated in the 12-step program. Passion cultivation training in 19. When did you learn that you were going to be parole eligible, that you could be parole eligible?
I believe, I think this was in 2011 they called us, or 2012 they called us. They had a meeting at Angola. Was telling all of the juvenile offenders that there was something. They would have someone come and talk to us about, I think it was Miss Pasquarella of Citizens for Second Chances, or something dealing with juvenile offenders. I may be misstating that, but they came and spoke to us and told us about some stuff that was going on in the court system, and they were getting ready to bring us back and forth to court. And EJI, which was the Equal Justice Initiative, also was partaking in works to try to do something with juvenile offenders as well.
Right. So that's when you really started working, when you knew you might have a possibility. Would you agree with that statement?
Maybe in part, because I did try to get my GED first. I made a promise to someone that I would try to do that because I hadn't finished school. And like I said, I did try to do something else. I think it was like 2007 or 2008, but unfortunately I made a bad decision and I got wrote up and locked up for it, and I didn't get to complete it. But when I had the opportunity, the first opportunity I got, which was 2011, I started, and I tried to get back into what I could.
Well, I do see, you know, your conduct record, as you have acknowledged, you had an adjustment period early on. You had a total, I think, of 91 write-ups, and I do see the last one, in 2018, was for defiance and aggravated work offense, I believe.
Yes,
but past 10 years, I look and it's definitely clear but something clicked with you because your write-up started tapering off. You know, you've had 7 in the past 10 years. And as I mentioned, the last was in 2018. So that's definitely improved. I do know you have the support of the Parole Project, and we'll hear from them in a minute, but I'd like you to tell us, what do you think your transition plan would be?
My transition plan would be to have the assistance of the Parole Project, and the area that I would be going would be in Baton Rouge to Global Outreach Ministries, that is custodianed by Miss Ruth Ned. I would like to stay there 6 months to a year, do whatever the board asks me to do or tell me to do. But I would like to work, give back to the community as I can, and establish from this point forward a life. If given the opportunity, I have some resources to help me, and I understand that if I have any trouble, I can actually ask from help from the parole entity itself, the officers of the Baton Rouge Police Department, YMCAs, Salvation Armies. I have a list of all of the resources that I would be able to utilize if given another opportunity.
What's your job there at RAID?
Right now, I am a nighttime cell block orderly.
So what do you do as a cell block orderly?
It's like basic janitorial skills. I clean the areas where the other prisoners live, clean the lobbies, whatever I'm asked to do by security, whatever they need, folding jumpsuits, dispensing clothes, cleaning the shower area, and whatever else there may be odd tasks, and I do it.
Okay. If you could, as I said, did you take any victim awareness or victim accountability training?
Yes, ma'am, I did. I actually took it, and I actually facilitated it as well.
I see, in 2019. What, if you could speak to your victim, Ms. Dennis, what would you say to her?
I would tell Ms. Dents that I am eternally sorry for the senseless, reckless crime that I committed against her, that I am truly sorry. And I'm sorry.
Okay, I understand. All right, any questions? Or Nozette, can you add anything to the conversation?
Well, since he's been here in October of 22, he has been involved in the AA 12-step sponsor group. That's what he's done as far as programming since he's been here. He does have a favorable recommendation from his work supervisor, and has not had any rule violations since he has been at David Wade.
All right, good deal. Thank you. Okay, I think we'll hear from the Parole Project. Mr. Myers, could we hear from you?
Yes, good morning. Kerry Myers with Louisiana Parole Project. Here from Mr. Green today. I would like to let the board know why we're here today. As the board, I believe, realizes that we have always prioritized juveniles convicted as adults who have served long sentences. That's one of the reasons we're here today, because we generally support them, and particularly through their reentry. And we've had a tremendous amount of success with juveniles who have come home. But in Mr. Green's case in particular, it's just been his body of work. He's addressed many of the issues of his incarceration through the risk management program, from victim awareness, through substance abuse programs. He has addressed his education issues. He has vocational skills through certifications in masonry, 1 and 2. He's addressed his personal development and spiritual development. He has a reentry plan. Those are the reasons we're here for Mr. Green today, because he has shown that, as juveniles tend to do, maturity, growth, and that is why we're here today. While we will not house Mr. Green, he will be living in Baton Rouge with Global Outreach Ministry. We will absolutely support Mr. Green in his reentry. He'll participate in our reentry program. He will be our employment enhancement team will work to find Mr. Green employment. We'll make sure that he has, especially since he was 17 when he committed this crime, we'll make sure he has the programming and the mentorship to learn how to function in a world that's going to be significantly different from the one he left. Then that includes technology and financial management, social norms, and those particular functions. He'll have evaluations through our social worker, and we'll work very closely with Global Outreach and his parole officer, should he be granted, to make sure he's successful. And I just want to let the board know that's why we're here today.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Mr. Green, before we turn it over to Ms. Hogan, is there something you'd like to say to us?
Yes, ma'am. First, again, I would like to apologize to Ms. Dentz. I would like to apologize not only to Ms. Dentz, but also to her family, her friends, the community, law enforcement, and everyone that this crime has negatively impacted. From the bottom of my heart, with the most sincerest apology, I offer it to the board and to Ms. Dentz as well. And for the board, I just say thank you for giving me the opportunity to come before you today. Thank you.
Let me mention before I turn it over to Ms. Hogan about the record will reflect, and as you know, we reach out as part of the process for community attitude. The sentencing judge, the district attorney's office did not submit a comment. The law enforcement office and the sheriff's office in the Parole did not submit any comments, nor did the police superintendent's office in New Orleans. The victim took no interest in this case, does not want to talk about it. So we were not able to get a comment from her. Ms. Hogan.
Just very briefly, I appreciate that this is a difficult case, that this board has difficult considerations to take into effect, especially with cases involving sex offenses. I appreciate that this is a very difficult case. And what makes Reginald Green's case unique is that when he committed his crime, he was 17 years old. So in addition to the normal considerations this board takes into consideration, there's also the fact that the United States Supreme Court said that sentencing Mr. Green to life forever in prison violates the Constitution. And the way that his sentence, he's still serving life, but the way that his sentence does not violate the Constitution is if he is afforded meaningful opportunities to be released based on his demonstrated maturity and rehabilitation. And so that is what the way that we've enacted the Graham case in Louisiana, as I know this board is exhaustively familiar with, is through the parole process. And this board is not just looking at what Mr. Green did 30 years ago and who he was, which unquestionably was a horrible person in need of correction who committed horrible crimes. So we do not dispute that. But looking at what Mr. Green has done for the last 30 years, in particular, the last decade, there's clearly evidence of demonstrating maturity and rehabilitation, not just from the programs that this board can see and that Mr. Myers mentioned, but I think also that Mr. Green's not just taking programs and learning things, he's also giving back to other people, which is a true mark of rehabilitation. He's worked as a hospice volunteer, he's been a healthcare orderly, he's been a pastor, he's been an assistant pastor, he uplifts people in his work as a, even though he's just been a janitor at the moment for nighttime cell block, he uplifts people on the cell blocks, he's been a cheer walker. He's always sought out situations, so he's a gospel singer. He has uplifted people through music while he was at Angola. He's participated in community service projects on the West Yard, and throughout his time in Angola, he was a trustee. He was made trustee before he was transferred to Wade. And when he got denied 4 years ago and he didn't get discouraged, he continued his trajectory. He hasn't had any write-ups in over 8 years. And all of that shows that he is demonstrated maturity and rehabilitation. He can live not just as a law-abiding member of any society that he's in, but that he will actually be giving back to people. I've spoken with the Parole Project and Global Outreach. They're excited to house him. He also has a pastor, a spiritual advisor, who's also in the Baton Rouge area, Pastor Randall, who wasn't able to be here today, but he doesn't have the family support because he was orphaned and he had a horrific childhood. And I know that this board's not going to hold that against him, but he got whatever support he's been able to establish throughout his incarceration, there is support for him. He will be closely monitored if he is granted release. He will be a lifetime sex offender registrant. So he will, if there is any issue with Mr. Green in the future, which I don't believe there will be, but if there is, he will be closely watched and he will be closely supported. So I ask this board not just to consider the typical things that this board would consider in parole hearings, but also specifically because this is a juvenile life case. And it's even different from juvenile serving life or homicides. I mean, the Supreme Court says is because this is a non-homicide offense, Mr. Green cannot spend the rest of his life in prison. So I would ask this board just to consider everything you think you'd like to see.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Green.
Yes, ma'am.
I had to get you back on the screen. Mr. Green, I think we are prepared to vote. I'll be voting first. And Ms. Hogan's right. This is a really difficult case. I will say this, that, you know, I'm impressed with the work that you've been doing and the length of time within which you've been doing it. You know, like you said, it was in 1996, I believe, when you started working on your GED, and you kind of progressed from there. I'm impressed with the fact that you hadn't had any write-ups since you've been at David Wade. You know, some of the nature of your write-ups concerns me, but they were early on in your, you know, during your incarceration. And as I said, in the past 10 years, we can definitely see that you matured and that you've grown. We've had no opposition from the legal community in New Orleans. We have no expressed victim opposition in this case. My vote today is going to be to grant. You have a low risk score, and you also have a low static 99, which is specific risk assessment for sex offenders. My vote today is going to be to grant your parole to the Rescue Global Outreach Residence Plan with the support of the Parole Project. That's my vote. Mrs. Stapleton.
I agree with Mrs. Reynolds.
Mrs. Perdue. I concur. I vote to agree. All right, Mr. Green, don't let us down. Go do good work.
Unmute my audio ito.
Hello?
All right, we are back in session. Good, Mr. Barrera? Barrera,
Hello,
would you introduce yourself? Tell us your name and DOC number.
my name is Ramiro Barrera, DOC number 734469.
All right, very good. Mr. Barrera, my name is Cheryl Renatza. Seated to my left is Mrs. Ledoux, and to my right is Mrs. Stapleton. I'm going to read some information into the record and ask you to confirm it. Then I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Stapleton. Your case has been assigned to her. She'll take the lead on the unit. We have joining us, I think you can see on the screen, we have your father, Mr. Arturo Barbera, and he wants to speak also on your behalf. We'll ask him at the appropriate time to do so. So Mr. Ramiro Barrera, you're classified as a first felony offender. You're currently serving a 12-year sentence. You were sentenced in Calcasieu Parish, May of 2018. For carnal knowledge of a juvenile and or intimidating or impeding or injuring witness. So it's a total of 12 years. Your parole eligibility was May 24th, 2021, and you have a good time date, February 19 of 2027. Is that information correct?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Okay, would you answer Mrs. Stapleton, please?
Mr. Barrera, one thing I wanted to ask you about, what's the charges that was brought against you in this case? I've got carnal knowledge of a juvenile and intimidating, impeding, or injuring the witnesses. The carnal knowledge of juvenile, I have that she was 14 years old when this happened. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
I have that the mother found naked pictures of yourself and other men on the phone being sent to the child. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Did you have sex with the child? Is that correct?
Yes, I did.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. And then later the child said that she thought she was pregnant. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And then you went over there with the gun, and did you shoot up the house or anything? Or they said there was 9 bullets shot.
Yeah, I shot in the air.
So was that just to say, because to the mother, she better drop the charges because here you are and you have a gun, which you shouldn't have had anyway?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. It was dumb. I was out of my mind. I wasn't thinking straight. But you are correct. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, well, I see. I mean, we're going to talk about the classes that you've done. You've done the classes. I see that you did the sex offender classes. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Is there anything you'd like to tell me about? See, when I was reading it, it said other men were involved with this. Do you know anything about that?
No, man, I don't know anything about that.
Okay, just yourself. Okay. Well, you've done, tell me the programs you take. I know what I'm reading. You just tell me what programs you've taken and what you think you got out of them that would change your life.
Well, I took all the phase classes for the cognitive behavioral sex offender treatment. And that was a big help in giving me the tools necessary to recognize the risks, know the risk factors, and assess situations at risk levels, things like that, so I can know when I'm at risk or be able to prevent things happening in the future. That's what I got from that one. And I do AANA. I do general membership. I go every month for that.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, Alcoholics and Narcotics Anonymous, that's a big one. I completed the 12-step sponsor group. So that was a really important one for me too. It taught me a lot about making amends and just trying to do better and always keeping myself in check, trying to do the right thing basically, and to stay clean and sober because sobriety is very important. And especially now to me, after everything that happened to me, because because I was under the influence. But yeah, I'm big on that. And I did anger management, victims awareness, thinking for a change, living in balance, which is our substance abuse program here. I got a Serve Safe certification for managerial skills in the restaurant industry. Celebrated Recovery, which is like a faith-based recovery program. Navigators program, Bible telling instructor. The Hearts program, which is healing and eliminating abusive relationships through scripture. And I did, even on my own, outside of David Wade, I did a criminal course, which is something that I just found on my own, trying to reach out and do other things. And I got one certificate from there. It was the way to happen is basically just learning virtues, morals, and things like that, how to be a better person.
That's were you sentenced to 12 years? Is that correct? And how many years have you been incarcerated?
I was sentenced to 12 years, 8 for the carnal knowledge and 4 for the intimidating the witness. I've done 7.
All right. If you could speak to your victim right now, what would you want to say to her and her mother? Because she was frightened too. She was frightened with the gunfire.
If I could speak to them now, I just tell them that I'm truly, deeply, very, very sorry for what I put them through, what I've done. And I just want to ask their forgiveness because I should have never put them through that. They don't deserve that. And I don't even know. I just hope they can forgive me. I'm sorry. That's all I can really tell them. That I meant no disrespect, and I'm sorry for any fear or mental pain that I've caused them or anything like that. That's out of my character. I've never done anything like that before, and I'm just truly very deeply sorry. I wish I wouldn't have never done that.
Okay, I'm going to pass the questioning over to Ms. Reynolds. Thank you very much.
Mr. Barrera, I see even though I said your master prison record shows you're a first offender, I do see a prior sentence imposed in Texas, 5 years for evading arrest or detention with a vehicle or watercraft. What is that?
I was evading arrest charge that I picked up in Texas when I was younger.
What does that have to do with the watercraft?
Watercraft?
Says evading arrest.
Wasn't on a boat. I was in a car.
In a car, I guess that was just so detention with a vehicle.
Yeah, I'm thinking that's just more on the descriptive side of the crime on paper, maybe.
And you mentioned your AA work and your desire to remain clean and sober. And I noticed somewhere in the record, it seems as though that you blame this crime involving this 14-year-old girl. You claim to have relapse after 10 years of sobriety. So what was the trigger, you think, that made you relapse?
I was going through a lot. I had a lot of pressure on me. I was having problems at home with my wife on different levels. She was sick. She was very, very moody and like, and I was really struggling with that because I was really scared for her because she was so sick and nobody knew what it was. And we would take her to the hospitals and they would give her a sandwich and a orange juice and tell her that she's fine and she just needs to rest. And I was so frustrated with that. And seeing her go through all this suffering and pain day after day was really wearing me down. And at the same time, I had a lot of time on my hands because I was in between contracts from work. I had 2 months in between my contract. And so I had a lot of time and money. And I was worried about this and I was worried about that. And just I kind of had a lot of pressure on me. And to be totally honest with you, there's no excuse for the relapse. But one day I just got it in my mind that I just need a break. I'm dealing with too much right now. It's a little bit too much for me, feeling overwhelmed. So I went out to a bar, and one thing led to another. I found some drugs, and I started doing drugs, and I just kept doing them. And that was 12 years, 10, 12 years sobriety down the drain right there. Just because I couldn't handle the pressure. It was a lot of pressure.
Or when you were sober for 10 or 12 years, how were you maintaining your sobriety then? Were you going to meetings? How were you doing that?
I would go periodically to meetings, and my wife, really, to be honest with you, my wife was the one that kept me in check. She was the one that made me want to be better and be the best that I could be, so I could give her a better life and support her. So really, my mind was not on drugs and alcohol at all. My mind was like on building my life, getting a house and supporting my family, try to build a family because we're trying to have children, and that was my main focus.
Do you have any children?
I do not, because my wife unfortunately had urinary cancer, and she was unable to have children. So we found out about that after my incarceration. Yeah. So that's why wouldn't have kids, but we did try for a few years there.
And so you were married at the time of this crime also, right?
Yeah, yes, ma'am, I was.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. So do you have any?
I just wanted to know, where would you live if you were released on parole?
Well, right now, I plan to live with my father in Corpus Christi, Texas.
And you and your wife are not together?
My wife, unfortunately, has passed away. She passed away in March. Yep.
So you would be seeking an out-of-state contract to go to Corpus Christi?
Yes, ma'am.
Warden Dozat, can you offer anything?
Ma'am. Yeah, I wanted to just offer a little bit about Mr. Barrera. He hasn't had any write-ups at all, but he's been a good inmate here as far as his behavior goes. He's also very respectful. I will note he's also very respectful with staff, which, you know, we can all appreciate. We did apply for the interstate compact transfer, but it was denied, and I believe there was a miscommunication with the time in which they went out to check the property. So classification's been working with them to try to get that ball rolling again. However, we've also explored some different options, and as of right now, we are pending a approval with Tara Dupree with the Foundation Recovery House, and that's in Shreveport as an option. We haven't heard back from that, but we should be hearing back sometime, hopefully before the end of the week. And we're still working with probation and parole out of Texas to try to get that interstate compact process going again.
Do you all have experience with that Foundation Recovery House?
Yes, ma'am, we have not a lot of experience, but we've had a few, and then we've also had some through the DWCC programs that has discharged, that they've had some success with it.
Okay, good, thank you. All right, I think, yeah, your father is on the Zoom, Mr. Arturo Barrera. We'd like to hear from you, sir.
We can't hear you.
You're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. I'm Ramiro's father, and I'm the one that basically compact commerce, it was approved. Basically, everything was going fine. The house was in the right place, and the utilities were on. That I had everything lined up. What happened was a miscommunication between me and the parole officer. We had the first meeting in our home, and that's where I verified that we was in the right track with the house location and all the requirements. Except when it came down to the second meeting, he had told me, okay, it's gonna be on a Wednesday, and then he said, but if you because I told him the landlord was gonna go in there and work on some plumbing, right? So on a Wednesday, so he said, okay, if you prefer, we'll do it on a Thursday at 7:30. Okay, So we got into that date. And then on that Thursday, I had a service call because I'm a mechanic and I do calls on the side of the road, right? So I had a call at 5:30, and I said, well, I'll go to this call, get back up by 6 o'clock, 6:30, be at the house. Somewhere down the line, either either he was there too early or I was there 2 minutes too late, somewhere on there. And that was where the miscommunication happened. Next thing I know, my boys calling me that they had called the parole board over there that it was denied for that reason. But it wasn't denied because the house was not in the right location or nothing was out of place. It was just because of that meeting that I missed, basically, because if the man went, he went, right, and I wasn't there. But I'm confident if we apply for another compact, it's gonna go through because in the first meeting he had basically already told me, okay, we're good here. I just need to come back one more time and make sure everything's in order. Your utilities, your stove, your washer, the place because I was currently renting in another place, but it wasn't where Ramiro could be, so I had to go find another place, which is this house, and it got a little bit complicated for me. Not in the sense that I couldn't comply with everything that needed to be done. It was just that one morning that I wasn't there. And I know it's not nobody's fault but mine, because I could have just said, I'm not gonna take this call and just waited there. But the bills, financial responsibility. So I took a chance and I went, took that service call. And either I was 2 minutes late because it was at 7:30 and I was there at 7:32 and I waited, and then the day went by and I tried to get in contact with a parole officer, but no more
Mr.
response.
Barrera, we're
And
having
then,
some,
yes, ma'am.
breaking up a little bit for us, so let me just, the plan would be that, your son would live there at your home.
Yes, yes,
Okay, that's what we needed to know. Thank
yes.
you. Ramiro, is there anything you'd like to say to us before we vote?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Just want to say thank you for taking the time to hear my case. I hope you can understand my humbleness, my honesty, shame, remorse, and regrets for the crimes I committed. I have rehabilitated myself through the programs available to me, and I will not stop here. I plan to continue to better my life and myself. I'm a changed, drug-free, God-fearing man, and I know that I can't change the past, but I've taken the right steps to ensure that I won't reoffend in the future. I now have the right tools and knowledge to be able to identify triggers and risky situations to prevent reoffending and to be a productive member of society and a good family member. My time in prison has shown me that men condition themselves to choose between two paths upon release. One path is to return to a life of vice. The other is the path towards virtue. I reject my past life of vice and I choose to pursue a life of virtue. Prison life is a life of deprivation. I have skills that my family and friends needed, but I deprived them of the help I could have provided because I committed a crime, and for that I am also truly very sorry. While I've been here, I've suffered many losses. Many of my family members have passed away, including my dearly beloved wife, who battled cancer for many years, as you already know. My mother, grandmother, and father have growing health concerns, and they want me there, and I want to be there to give them aid and comfort. One comfort to my father has the dual benefit of helping him with his work, which he needs very much. He's always telling me how much he needs me to go help him work. Isn't that right, Dad? And it gives me the opportunity to take over his business like he wants, because he feels like his time is short with us. My brothers and sisters also, and many other members of my family also need my help too. In short, my time at David Wade Correctional Center has shown me that time is what matters most. Time devoted to the service and benefit of family, friends, and neighbors. What scripture teaches is true. A man matures and puts away childish ways. I have turned my back on my past self and I am devoted to living a just life. I will never cause you to regret sending me home. Thank you for your consideration.
All right, thank you, Mr. Barrera. We have a motion.
Let's move on. So I make a motion, we go into executive conference.
Can we get the roll call, please?
Ms. Renata?
Yes.
Ms. Davidson?
Yes.
Yeah. Mr. Barrera, we're going to be in executive session for a few moments to discuss confidential matters. We'll be right back. Just stand by.
Okay.
All right, we are back in session. We are prepared to vote. Mrs. Stapleton will be voting first.
Today I'm going to deny your parole based upon strong law enforcement opposition.
Mrs. Ledoux.
Mr. Barrera, I appreciate, first of all, your disciplinary conduct while incarcerated. I'm sure that the warden would like to have a dozen more like you in terms of how you have complied with the rules. And the other thing I want to say is that you've done a great job with your programming. We have some significant concerns from law enforcement, and I echo those concerns, particularly with the intimidation charge. And my vote today is to deny.
All right, and Mr. Barrera, I do echo what both of my colleagues have said, that for me today, the vote is to deny you parole based on the very strong comments and opposition expressed by law enforcement. So today, sir, your parole's been denied. Good luck to you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, we are back in session and we have Mr. Harris. Good afternoon, Mr. Harris.
How you doing? I'm all right.
Would you introduce yourself? Tell us your name and DOC number.
My name's Donald Harris, 87325.
Yes, sir, Mr. Harris. Let me introduce us to you. I'm Cheryl Renatza. Mrs. Ledoux is seated to my left. Mrs. Stapleton is to my right. How are you today?
All right.
Yeah.
It's cold
Well,
in here.
it's cold in there? Well, you can hang meat in our room, so
It's cold
we
here.
understand.
Yes.
Keeps us awake. So Mr. Harris, you've been through this process quite a few times, so you know the process. So I'm just going to jump right in and let's get started. Mr. Harris, you're classified as a third felony offender. You have a 120-year sentence that you're serving. Your parole eligibility date was November 1st, 2009, and your adjusted good time date is January 26, 2049. Is that information correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Harris, your case has been assigned to Mrs. Ledoux. Would you answer any questions she may have?
Ma'am.
Morning, Mr. Harris.
All right.
65 years old, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. I'll be 65 in October. October the 5th.
I think prison ages people.
Well,
I think prison ages people. Sir, you're a third class offender and you've been serving, is it 34 years on the sentence?
yeah, going 35.
So looking back, would you have robbed those two people at gunpoint if you knew what you would be facing today?
No, ma'am.
So what brought you to the point where you committed that crime?
Well, I just needed some money. And that was the only way I could get it at that time.
Really? Okay. What is your job there at David Wade? What kind of assignment do you have?
Well, they got us sweeping the walks and wiping the windows. Right now, raking leaves, doing yard work.
Okay. Let's see. You've done some improvement in your conduct, and it looks like the staff said that you're starting to not argue so much about whenever they tell you to do something. So that's a good thing. I have that noted here that you've had 100 write-ups in your time, and your last one was in 2021. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. I think so. I ain't got my file on that one.
I've got pretty much everything on you. At least 81.
If you got it on file, I guess it's true.
I got the authoritative word right here. Oh, okay. Mr. Harris, since you have been heard the last time, you've taken the class Thinking for a Change. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You remember taking the class in 2020?
Yes, ma'am. I got that right here.
Tell me what you learned from that class.
Thinking from a change, I learned try to think positive about most of the things I do. And most of my thinking is based up on going out there, being successful, building some businesses and some houses. It's a good course. I enjoyed it when I took it. And I think my thinking for a change is improved on what I see, you know.
I've heard that that's one of the best classes that is offered while you're down. Mr. Harris, you have only served, you have a 120-year sentence. And you've served not even half of that, you know. Why should we let you out now?
Why should you let me out? Because I done did over half of it already. I got a paper right here from the classification lady, Miss Victoria, where she's saying I have less than 30 years left on the whole sentence. And I had to do like 60 years. I had 60 years, 30 years on each sentence to do. And I done started on the second 60-year sentence. And I feel if you let me out, I ain't coming back to prison, no harm. I'm too old to be coming back to prison. I got kids, grandkids, and all right there.
Sir, I see that you were given a 120-year sentence.
260 years consecutive.
260 years consecutive.
And I did one already.
You've only been in prison 34 years.
Yeah, but I get double good time. So I had to do 30 years, 20 years for the parole, which made it 30 years with the double good time.
Yeah, for good time. Yeah, I saw that you had lost 255 days and then 175 were restored. So you had some of that restored and then you got 470.
Yeah, right here I got, when I went on the board in 2020, and the 9th month, the 8th, 2020, they gave me back 100 days. When I went to Camp F trustee, I got another 75 days of that back. I come up here, I got into victim awareness, and they gave me 75 days for that there.
Right. I'm gonna defer to my colleagues.
Yeah, let me ask a couple questions, Mr. Harris. You mentioned, well, the record shows you did Thinking for Change, the class you really liked in 2020. Right. And it taught you how to think about things. But you got a write-up in 2021. I know this is why you were still in Angola, I believe, for defiance and aggravated disobedience after you did Think for Change. Tell us about that write-up. Do you remember that?
Yes, ma'am. I was back there on the road coming from the graveyard, and the shakedown crew came up. They came down through there and messed with me. So I'm trying to explain what he started saying. I don't want to write nobody up. So somebody done something to mess with me off the top. But the whole thing was based up on they taking me off the road, putting me over there at the bachelor quarter without me knowing it. So when they came and went to harassing me, they went to cussing, I went to cussing back. So they wind up taking me to the dungeon, but once I get to the dungeon, they didn't take my trustee. They put me back in the camp on the yard and told me they would go move me to the bachelor quarter, and that's where I went. When I left Angola and come up here, I had gave my trustee status back to get transferred because they weren't gonna move no Class A trustees. So
and
that's how that went out.
And you wanted to move? You wanted to move?
Yes, ma'am. I had put in for a geographic transfer to come up here, but they wasn't gonna move no Class A trustee from down there.
So you gave back trust. Okay.
Yeah, I had to give it up.
You have family in that area?
Up here? Yeah, I got a brother stay right there in Minden. I got a brother, nephews. I got some children there. And I'm from Jonesboro down there, and I got children in Jonesboro too.
When's the last time they visited you?
I don't get visited. I stopped getting visited because when I got out the first time, my brother and them went through 2 brand new cars. So they said, if you go back to prison, that we ain't coming back down the road. So I couldn't blame them for that there. They burned up 2 brand new cars on my first joke. So I don't do the visit thing because I'll be all emotion when they leave, and I'll be out of my body by being locked up and they going back, and it hurts, you know?
Right.
So, but if you give me the chance and opportunity to go back and be reunited with my family, I'm just gonna be appreciated by all 3 of y'all.
Well, you know, I'm gonna listen, but I'm just, you know, I worry about the fact less than 3 years ago, you had that episode where you were cursing the officer, the defiance and the aggravated disobedience. You know, if you would have kept your mouth shut, things might be a little different for you, you think?
Well, Mr.
But that's
Renocci,
hard to do sometimes, I know.
hey, Mr. Renocci, you already know how that shakedown crew is and
I-
then goes.
I do. You just gotta,
Yeah, but let me show you what they did. The day I got out the dungeon, they put me over there at that bachelor quarter. You know what they did? They came back over there to the bachelor quarter. Now, I ain't on the road. I'm at the bachelor quarter. They come over there and sat in the parking lot while I'm doing the weed and waving at me. You see what I'm saying? So the whole thing wasn't nothing but a setup.
you still gotta think before you speak. You gotta think before you speak. Let's talk about your time at Wade. Have you had a write-up since you've been there?
Oh, man.
Now, why do you think that is?
Because I stayed with myself and I mind my business like I was doing in Angola.
What is your job?
Up here,
Yeah.
I be sweeping the walk-in,
Oh, that's right. Did you tell us that? I'm sorry, you did tell us that. Are you enrolled in any classes?
I just did the big one. That's the only one I've been in. And I got everything that they teaching up here. I already got that in this.
All right. So if you could speak to your victim, Mr. Harris, what would you say to your victims? There's 3 of them, I believe.
3 of them?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would apologize to them for what happened, what occurred and what happened. You know, I'm sorry, you know, and ask them to forgive me.
All right, I just have one more question. You mentioned to Ms. Ledoux that, you know, the reason you committed that crime was because that was the only way to get money. What did you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
Because I was broke, I ain't had no money in my pocket. And now that my father up there done blessed me with all this wealth down here, I'm gonna go invest.
Yeah, but you were like, what, almost 30 years old when that happened?
Yeah, going on 30.
Weren't working, you didn't have a job. How are you supporting yourself?
Yeah, I had a job. I had a car, but I still needed money. I just needed money.
What did you need money for?
Because I wanted a business and I ain't had the money to get it.
So that day, you just wanted money to start a business. That's what you thought you were doing?
No, I thought I was getting some money to save up on to get a business started. That wasn't enough money. So now that I have enough money, I could go and invest it in some businesses and build these houses that I promised people that I was gonna build for them.
So what if you have a business and somebody comes to you and says, I need some money, you say no, and they pull out a gun and say, well, I'm just gonna take your money then.
And I'm gonna say you can have it.
I'm
gonna give it to them.
Careful how I don't know that your thinking is. How would you get money if you're out and you didn't have the money from your father? How would you get some money?
I'll get a job. I'll pick up drink cans off the street, but I wouldn't rob nobody.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I have a couple of your victims did write in the past, in 2009. They weren't able to get in touch with them this time. But both of them said that they were scared to death, that you had a gun to their head and that you were threatening to kill them. So, I mean, and then so you add that with your statement just now that you needed money, and instead of doing what anybody else would do, think they got to get a job, these were women and you just put a gun to their head, take their money. And so, I mean, the same thing could happen. You get out now and you lose your money. What's your alternative thinking? You say now you would pick up cans instead of doing that?
Yes, ma'am. If that's what it takes for me to have money, and I could be broke, it wouldn't really matter. I would still wouldn't go and pull no robbery off, rob somebody for what they done work for. You know, I understand the consequences to all of it now. But I'd rather pick up drink cans and sleep under a bridge than to come back to prison or go to jail for taking something that don't belong to me.
Right. And that's the whole point.
And that's the whole point. I would never do it again to nobody, man, woman, or beast, or whatever it considered to be,
Warden Dozat, anything else you can offer?
Yes, ma'am. Donald hasn't, his conduct record has been good since he's been here. He does have a nice recommendation from Warden Tolliver in regards to his work performance. As Donald and I spoke last week, I encourage him to maybe take advantage of some of our educational programming. It doesn't look like there's a definitive plan for employment, and I know we're getting a lot of programs and certifications here in the next few weeks that I think he could benefit from participating in some of those. And so that would be my recommendation, to be able to try to get some type of skill set under his belt so that he'll have an employable skill when he does get out.
I appreciate you saying it. Thank you. Mr. Harris, is there a statement you'd like to make to us before we vote?
Yes, ma'am. Like I said, I got the money to go build my businesses, and I got all the blueprints and everything drew up. And all I ask y'all for the opportunity to let me be free, to grant me my parole and let me go on and do what I got to do.
All right. Yes, sir. I think we're ready to vote. Mrs. Ledoux.
Mr. Harris, your file was quite long. I read all of your information several times. Law enforcement and your victims are both very opposed to your release at this time. I know you've been down this path with the parole board several times, but my vote today is to deny.
Mrs. Stapleton.
I agree. I vote to deny based upon law enforcement opposition and strong victim opposition.
All right, Mr. Harris. Yeah, I worry about you. And I do see you've been to the parole board multiple times. I would vote to grant your parole only after completion of the job skills training program that Warden Dozat has mentioned. Because I know you want to go open your businesses, but that's not as easy as you think it is. You need some skills to be able to get a job, but you've received 2 votes to deny your parole. So today your parole's been denied, sir. That concludes our business at your facility. We're going to adjourn at 12:35. Thanks for helping us out.
Have a good day.